Chapter 374. It was a huge eye that was burning with golden light. The vertical pupil seemed to be able to swallow one's soul. In terms of size, this eye was much bigger than William and the others. The vampires all fell to their knees. This was because they could feel the irresistible dragon might from the depths of their souls. This was the might of the blood dragon. This was the firebird of the creator of vampires. The blood race didn't worship all the dragon race. Only the blood dragons would give birth to such thoughts. When William saw this scene, he knew that there should be a blood dragon inside. However, as time passed, although everyone remained motionless, many thoughts began to form in their minds. They believed that the unextinguished golden eyes meant that the giant dragon had never died. But if the blood dragons really didn't die and knew that their former servants had come, why didn't they summon them? Heavily injured? His injuries are so severe that he can't move. The soul is dead, but the body is not destroyed. The vampires of the three factions each had their own thoughts. After all, they had come for the blood essence of the blood dragon. A living blood dragon was not in their interest at all. But just as they were considering whether they should take the initiative to go in, a voice resounded in the depths of everyone's souls. "Come in." It was just two simple words, but it gave people a feeling that they didn't dare to resist. In general, follow your heart. Dracula and his companions looked at each other and struggled to stand up. Then, they glanced at the people of the City of Dawn who had also heard this. The former hardened his heart and braced himself to take the lead. The vampires were at the forefront. William and his group, who had also heard the noise, walked behind them. Now was not the time to refuse, because professionals in the guru realm like them simply could not resist the existence of the legendary, or even the saint realm. Regardless of whether they were heavily injured or not, the crimson dragon in front of them should be strong enough to crush them into ashes. More than 50 people who were blocking the entrance all entered. Only after entering the enormous dragon clan palace did they see everything clearly. Dead bodies. The ground was littered with corpses. There were dragon corpses everywhere. There were no corpses that were more than 10 meters long. The smallest dragon corpse in front of them was more than 50 meters long. This meant that the dragons participating in this battle were at least adult dragons. A domain dragon. He was the only living being in the entire dragon palace. It was the golden eye in front of them, the blood dragon. However, there were unimaginable injuries on his body. This was a giant dragon that was more than 300 meters long. The wingspan that was scattered on the ground was at least 1,000 meters long. However, 90% of its body was made up of ghastly white bones and slowly rotting dragon flesh. Some of the bones even had bite marks all over them. The only thing that remained intact was the dragon crystal on his chest, as well as the ball of blood essence that covered the dragon crystal. In addition, it was the only eye left. This blood dragon could be called a bone dragon. However, he's not dead yet. That was because when they arrived, blood dragon's pupils constricted. Seeing this situation, an earth-shattering aura surged towards them once again. The aura was so heavy that it was almost stagnant, suppressing them to the point that they couldn't even utter a single word. William had long since used his insight, but all the information was filled with question marks. Just when everyone was at a loss and even regretting coming to this place, the blood dragon, who was obviously at the end of his lifespan, used his soul power again and said in a self-mocking tone, "Servants that I created casually, are you here to save me?" Dracula and the others wanted to speak, but when they looked at the blood dragon's eye, they didn't have the courage to lie. One of the most important things was, they suddenly realized, they were being controlled. At that moment, their souls were controlled by the blood dragon. This was the price they had to pay for immortality. If the blood dragon could create them, he could control and destroy them. Meanwhile, the blood dragon's eyes were no longer looking at the blood race. Instead, he looked at William and the others with a strange gaze. Just when he was about to say something, the giant dragon's pupils suddenly constricted when he looked at William. An indescribable aura suppressed his body, and the prince almost knelt on the ground. The prince was a little bewildered. He wanted to crush the teleportation scroll in his hand and leave this place. Not to mention breaking the alternate dimension. He could even leave the palace. After all, William had discovered a problem. William's injuries were too severe, and his soul power could not spread too far. This was because he had not discovered Alec. Or rather, Alec did not hear William's words. So, only Alec was still outside the Dragon Palace. But no matter what, it didn't feel good to be stared at by a legendary blood dragon, who might even be a sage. William wanted to wonder if he had killed too many dragons, so the blood dragon could tell? But that was not right. The shining title above his head only had an effect on the players. The NPCs wouldn't be able to recognize it. But who would have thought that? The blood dragon didn't kill William as the other vampires expected. Instead, he simply said in a deep voice, "Come closer to me." The prince looked at the huge dragon's head. One of its eyes was sunken in, and the other eye had never closed. The dragon's mouth was full of wounds, and its teeth were cracked. He raised his eyebrows and walked to a position less than 10 meters away from the blood dragon with his bare hand. At this moment, the blood dragon's nostrils deeply inhaled. His golden eyes contracted slightly. When he looked at William again, there was a complicated look in his eyes. Then he said in an inexplicable tone, "You participated in or killed 2 dragons." The corners of William's mouth twitched. What a cool dragon nose! Was he born in the year of the dog? A few years ago, he had killed a fire dragon and he could smell it? But the prince didn't lie. He nodded and said, "That's right. I killed a fire dragon and participated in killing a white dragon." "Very good. I like humans who don't lie. But you have the aura of a dragon on you. You didn't tell me." The blood dragon's tone was not calm. Burned Cinder and the others raised their eyebrows. Even the other vampires looked at William. He was right. William had never hidden the fact that he had reared a dragon. But the others couldn't recognize the small, black dragon. What kind of dragon was it? Because there was no dark aura on the dragon. Many people even thought that the Lord of the City of Dawn had reared a dragon. It was a hybrid between a great dragon and other creatures. When William heard this, he couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Just as he was about to say something, the blood dragon suddenly opened his mouth. Air gushed into his mouth like a hurricane. At that moment, William had wanted to crush the space scroll and escape first, but none of the people from the City of Dawn were sucked into the dragon's mouth. Instead, Osmond, Flender, Dracula, and the others were swallowed into the dragon's stomach without any resistance. Perhaps it was not the stomach. They were swallowed into the dragon's mouth. The blood dragon used his teeth to chew a few times. He was still savoring the aftertaste. A few seconds later, the sacrifice of more than 50 Grandmaster vampires restored some of the blood dragon's energy. The remaining golden pupil became brighter and brighter. Until this moment, the blood dragon muttered, "I didn't expect the existence of a dusk dragon in this world." William opened his mouth, but he didn't manage to say anything. The blood dragon ignored William and continued to reminisce about the past. The blood race and their servants are food that we, the blood dragons, specially made for ourselves. But in their inherited memories, it only shows that they are servants of the blood dragon. It doesn't say that they are our food. After all, we engraved the symbol of food into their memories. It's too inhumane. Gosh, don't you think it's too much to talk about humane? William was speechless. However, the blood dragon didn't know what he was thinking. He looked at William and pondered for a long time before saying, "Is it the 4th era now?" Yes, it's the beginning of the 4th era." William wanted to ask the old man how he knew about the time flow outside. But after thinking about it, he gave up on this nonsense. The blood dragon grimaced in pain. It seems like it's going to be another chaotic era. Next, the blood dragon kept asking questions. "Are there any blood dragons in the Gods' continent?" "No." What about the rainbow dragon? I've never heard of it. Fairy dragon? I've never heard of it. Mystic dragon? I've never heard of it. Moonlight dragon? There are records of it, but I've never seen it. William didn't know anything. The others didn't know if he really didn't know or if he was pretending to not know. But the blood dragon wasn't angry. He asked again, "Are there time dragons in the gods' continent? I've heard of them before. They should still be alive, but I don't know how many there are. I don't know where they are." This time, William finally gave a definite answer. The blood dragon nodded in relief. He thought that William was right. The time dragon was cunning and wouldn't die. As for the number, 2 fingers were enough. But when the people in the City of Dawn heard the names of these dragons, they felt like they were listening to a wordless book. They were completely dumbfounded. What was this? Did the dragon race have such species? They had no idea. And it sounded like the elemental dragons and the metal dragons couldn't be compared to them. After pondering for a while, the blood dragon looked at William and asked, "Why are you here?" William hesitated for a while before he said in a firm tone, "It's for the dusk dragon. He's my companion, but he's too young and weak. I want him to become stronger so that he can accompany me to the gods' continent and even beyond the gods' continent. So, according to the rumors, I came here to look for your blood essence." The blood dragon looked deeply at William and said in a deep voice, "Very good, you're still not lying." William didn't know how the blood dragon could tell if he was lying. But his true intention was to make the dusk dragon stronger. But in his narration, some words were slightly changed. For example, the dusk dragon is my companion. For example, I want him to accompany me to the gods' continent, but with the addition of these words, William didn't believe that the blood dragon would be able to tell. The blood dragon looked at William with a much friendlier gaze. He continued to reminisce and muttered, "We are the masters of the first era. We are supposed to be strong forever. If not for the civil war that shouldn't have happened, the elves wouldn't have had the chance to overthrow the rule of the dragon race and dominate the second era. It's a pity, forget it. It's too late to say anything. The past is in the past. Perhaps this is the will of the heavens. This is the problem caused by the dragon race being too powerful." At this moment, the blood dragon looked into William's eyes as if he wanted to say something. But in the end, he sighed like an old man who was about to pass away. Take it all. Give everything that I have that can be used to the dusk dragon. I've been waiting here for too long. I had a chance to live, but those D*MN servants didn't come to save me. It's too late. It's too late. Time passed. My soul has started to decay. My memory has started to blur. Even my indestructible dragon body is slowly rotting in the air. I have no chance of revival. Later, take my dragon crystal and my remaining blood essence and give them to the dusk dragon. Remember, take good care of him. He's the hope of the dragon race. Because the other dragons died. Those D*MN fellows, they're all dead." The blood dragon roared for the last time. Everyone in the City of Dawn could hear the endless desolation and unwillingness in the dragon's roar. In the next second, the blood dragon's gaze gradually dimmed. The blood essence and the dragon crystal, which had been in the center of his body, slowly flew into William's hands. Subsequently, the blood dragon said in a tone that could not be rejected, "Leave this place. The moment I die will be the moment Nibelungen is destroyed. So don't even think about taking the corpses of the dragon race. Even if they wanted to kill me, they are still the dragon race that controls the sky and earth. And the dignity and glory of the dragon race. In my place, they can never be violated." Hearing these words, William nodded with a solemn expression. Then, he led everyone to bow deeply and turned to leave. Just as everyone left the palace gate, William could not help but turn back to look at the blood dragon. That inextinguishable golden pupil. It was getting dimmer and dimmer. After all, The blood essence and dragon crystal that supported his soul had been given away. But his eye, no matter how dim it had never closed. Perhaps this respectable blood dragon had never closed his eyes since the day he had been seriously injured. But it was precisely because of his unimaginable perseverance and desire to live that he could survive until now. But no matter what, this kind of expert who would never admit defeat and had a bottom line was what William deeply admired. Even if he was not a human, but a dragon. How did Osmond Lothar obtain the blood essence of the blood dragon? William did not know. Was it because the blood dragon wanted a vampire to be his last descendant? Even if it was a descendant in human form, at least the blood dragon's bloodline would be left behind? But now that William had mistakenly entered, the aura of the dusk dragon had given the blood dragon a better choice? Anything was possible. William did not think too much about it, because the space had started to collapse. It was collapsing at an extremely fast speed. It was as if the entire world was about to be turned upside down. When he took out the map and opened the space rift again, Alec ran over with a grin on his face. It was obvious. There should be a lot of treasures, no matter what. William had gained a lot from entering this alternate dimension. Chapter 375. The moment the people of the City of Dawn came out from the crack in space, William received a notification that he had completed the mission. It was the same for the other players, but the rewards were different depending on the completion rate. Prompt: the Crimson Blood mission has been completed. A prompt: your completion rate for the S-level mission is 130%. A prompt: you will receive 1 million experience points and 300,000 experience points as a reward. Prompt: you will receive the endowment Eye of Truth. William was stunned. His level was very high. Under normal circumstances, he would not be able to receive many rewards from the main storyline mission. But he had followed the vampires into the crack in space. He did not even need to attack, but he had killed dozens of grandmasters. This was the main reason why the mission evaluation was so high. I have completed so many missions, but this is the only one that has reached 100% completion. And it has reached 130% in one go. Subsequently, William glanced at the Eye of Truth. It was a good endowment in his previous life. Logically speaking, it was one of the top endowments for rangers and close combat professionals. Endowment: Eye of Truth. Your eyes have the ability to see through the enemy's weaknesses. When you attack the enemy's head, heart, or other fatal spots, the critical damage will be increased by 100%. Even if you attack the enemy's weak spots, the critical hit rate will be increased by 30%. I can ignore the 30% critical hit rate increase when attacking the enemy's weak spots. William did not expect his luck to be very effective. But if he attacked the head, heart, or other vital spots, it would definitely cause critical damage. The effect of the Eye of Truth was to increase the critical hit rate by 100%. Although 100% was a small amount. But for some people who specialized in attacking the head and heart, it was simply awesome. Next, William looked at the scene of the players' heads, and then at the forum. He could not help but smack his lips. He did not know what to say. All the vampires were gone. If there were no accidents, in a short span of 2 to 3 hours, 20,000 vampires had been captured. As for the high-level vampires, they could not resist the players' attacks and flew away. Other than a few lucky intermediate vampires who died, the rest of the unlucky ones were all captured by the players. Many players had returned to the City of Dawn to exchange the vampires for contribution points, equipment, or positions. But the remaining players had not left. They were still waiting to see who would come out from the crack in space. The Dawn players heaved a sigh of relief. The final victor was His Royal Highness. Their main mission was also shown as completed. On the other hand, the players from the other two factions were completely confused. They had more or less encountered the main Crimson Blood mission, but what they received was very different from the Crimson Blood mission that William had modified. One sentence. Compared to the Dawn players, this was a huge loss. In particular, the players from both factions were once again betrayed by the faction boss. They could not believe or accept this. But no matter what, this was the result of the matter. My faction is gone again. A warrior player sat on the ground sadly. The City of Dawn is the victor again. Why? It's the same in the Iron Duchy and Emerald Grand Duchy. I can't even imagine that the king, marquises, counts, and nobles of Emerald Grand Duchy are all vampires. Could it be that the City of Dawn is the main character of the game? You don't say. Go check the forum. Someone posted a post. What does the City of Dawn represent in Gods? Poster. Angry Fatty, the #1 streamer in Gods. To be honest, on the first day of the game's closed beta, I entered the City of Dawn. At that time, the City of Dawn was just a small rundown city with a population of tens of thousands. But at that time, I could see that the City of Dawn was different. During the game's closed beta, elves, dwarves, and humans lived freely in the City of Dawn. There were about 10 epic and legendary bosses. During the game's open beta 1.0, I came to the City of Dawn again. There were many changes. The number of commoners in the city had increased, and the strength of the Dawn army had increased rapidly. I also managed to find out that our prince is a dragon slayer. He had snatched a dragon from the Iron Duchy. Very good. There was a small conflict between the Iron Duchy and the City of Dawn. This meant that they would be enemies in the future. Hence, when the Iron Duchy and the Black Lava Duchy had a war, the City of Dawn had helped them destroy the Iron Duchy. In version 2.0, the population of the City of Dawn had increased again. The Seraphin had joined the ranks of the Seraphin. There was even an angel. The ruler of the Iron Duchies, Freedom Alliance, the ruler of the king, Gerdanasses, had become a half-human, half-devil monster. He led 70% of the Dark Army in the southeastern region. He had millions of dark soldiers in an attempt to conquer the City of Dawn. In the end, he had died again. From then on, the Black Lava Duchy had given up its military power. The southeastern region had become the territory of the City of Dawn. However, the vampires of the East Sea Metropolis had provoked the City of Dawn. Hence, the East Sea Metropolis had been destroyed during the version update. The territory of the City of Dawn had expanded to the northeast. Version 3.0. Prince William had immediately given us the Crimson Blood mission. The purpose was to find the hidden vampires. Until now, we finally understood everything. The nobles and officials of the Emerald Grand Duchy and Lan Yu Grand Duchy were all vampires. These two nations were under the control of the vampires. They were living in the shadows of the devils. Many commoners did not even know that their nobles and lords were vampires. However, these vampires had all been captured, and if there were no accidents, these two countries would fall into chaos in the near future. What kind of existence would our Prince Royal Highness be? The outcome was obvious. According to Prince William's networking ability, even if the kingdoms were involved, the City of Dawn would still benefit from it. Furthermore, Prince William had entered an alternate dimension. He should have obtained even greater benefit. What I wanted to say was, the City of Dawn was closely related to the players. It had led us to many versions of the game. We used to think that the City of Dawn was a beginner's village. But Prince William had grown in an unbelievable manner. He had become stronger in many desperate situations and had established a firm foothold in the southern region. What did Prince William have? He had close to 10 legendary subordinates, hundreds of epic subordinates, countless legions. He had the protection of a great enchanter's mother. He had the support of the entire Blackleaf elven race. He even had a moonlight elven princess who could marry him. Moreover, had you heard about the Magic Conference? Odom Heavyhammer was the last prince of the Dwarf Empire of the Lonely Mountain. Why did little Angel Xian lead the Seraphin to join the City of Dawn? Let's look at the people around His Royal Highness who aren't too outstanding. In fact, Each of them has a great background and a past that no one knows about. What did this mean? Prince William had used various methods to gather the main character missions of various races. What was he? He was the destined main character. If we don't join the City of Dawn now, when will we? Trust me. After the Crimson Blood mission ends, Prince William will immediately announce the next main storyline mission. According to my opinion, the game company's setting for Prince William is to grow from a weak person until he becomes a towering super main character. This will be different from the main characters in other continents. Prince William will probably accompany us to the final version. He will be the main character of the Gods continent. I've finished my words. Everyone, think about it. Do I make sense? Angry Fatso's post was immediately pinned, highlighted, and became a hot topic. The moderators were all William's female fans. Hence, in a short period of time, there were countless replies. D*MN, it makes sense. The City of Dawn has never missed out on any main storyline missions. Even if the main storyline missions are thousands of kilometers away, Lord William will find a way to participate in them or let us participate in them. Even if it's the main storyline missions of other nations, we can use our identity as members of the Dawn mercenary team to participate in them. The City of Dawn doesn't lie in certain aspects. The benefits offered by the City of Dawn are also much better than many factions. That's right. Remember when Meichuan Naiku killed someone on the streets of Jadeite King City? Prince William protected him. We are the real sons. In the end, the Jadeite players were scolded by their own faction's boss. As an outsider, I feel sad just thinking about it. Stop talking, stop talking. We Emerald players are about to cry. Can't we join the City of Dawn? I've figured it out. In this game, there are no professions that are the real sons. Only the children of the prince are the real sons. I didn't expect the Deputy City Lord to be the last descendant of the Dwarf Empire in the Lonely Mountain many years ago. This is really unexpected. The Dwarf Prince, the Elf Princess, and the Winged Battle Angel. Are we missing a human main character? William scanned the forum and couldn't help but like Fatso's post. Fatso's performance was quite impressive. Now, he could even help William steal sheep. He was worth nurturing. In the future, William would give Fatso a hidden mission to increase his strength so that he could continue to brag for William. Next, William ignored the players who had not left. Instead, he informed the Red Fire Kingdom of the outcome. As for the Red Fire Kingdom and Vikra Redfire, they didn't expect the vampire incident to be resolved in such a short time. It didn't even cause trouble in the two Grand Duchies. This made William's affinity with the factions soar. It could not be helped. A reliable alliance was too important. In particular, Vikru Crimson Flames was already thinking about how to clean up after William's mess. After all, if William wanted to conquer the two Grand Duchies, he had to do something and pay a price. But everything was fine now. The vampires had been wiped out. The high-level and low-level vampires were all dead. The remaining high-level vampires were considered middle-level members of the two nations. But they didn't dare to return to their homes. They had all fled. Hence, in the next few days, there were earth-shattering changes in the Jadeite and Lan Yu Grand Duchies. The messengers of the Red Fire Kingdom appeared and announced that the rulers of the two nations were vampires. Due to the civil war between the vampires, they were dead. In addition, the City of Dawn had captured many vampires. They could easily prove that these nobles were actually vampires by using the water mirror magic. But before the civilian armies of the two nations had a civil war, the Red Fire Kingdom hired the army of the City of Dawn to temporarily maintain order in the two nations. With the arrival of the regular army of the City of Dawn and some powerful Legion commanders, the human Legion commanders didn't dare to act rashly. At the same time, the messengers of the Red Fire Kingdom announced that the two nations would choose a new king to ascend the throne. But there was no need to think too much. The two kings were just puppets. For example, William's approach to the Black Lava Dukedom was similar, but William was more secretive. The Red Fire Kingdom's approach would let people know about this matter. But they couldn't resist. But no matter what, William used a method that he didn't expect to easily resolve the main storyline mission of this version. But it didn't matter if it was fast, because the players would receive the super main storyline mission of the 10-year Blood War. This was the most exciting thing. It was just like what Fatty had said. No matter where the main storyline mission was, even if the City of Dawn was thousands of miles away, it could still bring the players to participate in it. Chapter 376. It would take at least a month to resolve the aftermath of the two duchies, the coronation of the new king, and the secret deal between the Red Fire Kingdom and the Lion Kingdom. But in this 1 month's time, that was when William would reap the most benefits. Within these 30 days, the Dawn Army would be responsible for the security, military, and political issues of the two Grand Duchies. In order to prevent any trouble from happening, the armies of the two Grand Duchies would be disarmed. All the Legion commanders, deputy Legion commanders, and soldiers would be redistributed. The same went for the city guards and the royal guards of the royal palace. But the soldiers would be dispersed. What about the palace treasure vault? What about the military material vault? The Dawn Army would be responsible for guarding it. Ahem. What did this mean? The Dawn Army would gain control of the two duchies within these 30 days. They could even move the treasure vault away. It would not be a problem even if they did it openly. After all transportation problems could be solved using the space ring. No matter how many items there were, they could carry them a few more times. This was the tacit agreement of the Red Fire Kingdom. It was also the reward that the Red Fire Kingdom had promised the City of Dawn. Otherwise, why would William take the risk alone? It was all for the wealth of the two duchies. What did the Red Fire Kingdom want? They wanted the population, sustainable resources, and territories of the two nations. As for the treasure vault, the Red Fire Kingdom did not care about it, because small duchies could be compared to grand duchies. But the difference between a grand duchy and a kingdom was like the difference between heaven and earth. But William wanted to tell them that they did not know how much money the vampires had. This group of old fellas would not spend gold coins to improve the lives of civilians and human soldiers. For hundreds of years, or rather, thousands of years, this group of vampires had been passed down from generation to generation. How much money did this group of vampires have? For the next 10 days, in the name of searching for vampires, William sent out 4 legions to raid the properties of the vampire nobles in the two Grand Duchies. That was right. They really raided their properties. When William came out of the space and time rift, he had sent people to monitor the territories of the vampire nobles to prevent their families from escaping with the loot. So he did not do anything in the treasure vault. He had already seized 13 million gold coins from the vampire nobles. Among them, there were also thousands of valuable artworks. These things were not of much use to William, but he could keep half of them and sell the rest. As for the various servants of the vampires, they naturally knew that the master they served was a vampire. To treat these people, His Royal Highness also took all of them away. Those who could contribute were mining, and those who couldn't could do other work. In these 10 days, William captured tens of thousands of people and brought them to the City of Dawn. They were all young men and women with decent bloodline potential. As for the reason for capturing them, does His Royal Highness need a reason? He couldn't be like the human nobles who arrogantly rode on a horse, pointed at a commoner, and called him a slave before taking him away. The reason he used was investigation. Find out if you know any vampires, if you know where they are. In any case, in this world where only the strong were respected, many things that were targeted at commoners were made up casually. As for how long the investigation would take, it was hard to say. This time, the City of Dawn was like a village raided by bandits. They robbed everything they could about the vampires and left nothing behind. Of course, he couldn't be too ruthless. So His Royal Highness only took 30,000 people from the two nations. Basically, they were commoners with intermediate, advanced, and grandmaster bloodlines. Among them, there were 6 epic bloodlines. Just as the Dawn Army was about to break up the armies of the 2 kingdoms, there was a mutiny. However, in the face of the Dawn Army, this group of soldiers with different skills could not do much. Although they did not have many military resources, they still managed to seize many good things. However, just as he was about to bring a few people to move the Emerald Palace's treasury, William was dumbfounded. Gold mountains, 5 gold mountains? Lautner, who had followed William into the treasury, felt as if he was going to go blind. How much is this? His Royal Highness was bewildered. Lautner looked at the mark beside the gold mountains and could not help but say, 1 gold mountain is worth 5 million gold coins. In total, it's 25 million gold coins? The vampires are really rich. William acted like the owner of the treasury as he walked through the entire palace's treasury. Mithril, orichalcum, adamantine, gemstones, magical stones, and various minerals that could increase attributes were worth more than the 25 million gold coins. But it was just like what William had said. The vampires who had not been given the opportunity to develop were a group of misers. They only used money to build their own vampire legions. They did not care about the human legions and would not invest much in them. But it was precisely because of this money that William understood a problem. In his previous life, after Osmond Lothar became the king of vampires, he was able to expand the vampire army so quickly. It was all because of these unexpected gains. The tens of Grandmaster vampires had space rings, and some of them had even taken away some valuable treasures. But William did not care about the treasures that could increase his personal combat power. He had ways to obtain legendary equipment. He had never forgotten that he was a lord. To him, resources were the most important. 1 month passed quickly. The Dawn Army did not bring anything when they came. When they left, they did not bring anything from the commoners, because everything that could be brought away was gone. But when the revolutionary army of the Red Fire Kingdom came to take over, they saw that the nobles' castles and the palace's treasury had been plundered. They were also dumbfounded. But no matter what, the words of the Red Fire Kingdom were also not to be questioned by others. This seemingly easy S-level mission had allowed William to seize an unimaginable amount of money and resources. The City of Dawn. In the conference hall, William sat at the head of the table. As his personal guard, Lautner wore a cloak and stood behind him for the first time. In the hall, the warriors sat on the left and the mages sat on the right. There were 2 rows of more than 30 subordinates participating in this conference. The warriors on the left, led by Odom Heavyhammer, sat at the head of the table. The mages on the right, led by Old Band, sat at the head of the table. William looked at the many legendary and epic warriors gathered in the hall, and his heart swelled. He took a few deep breaths and gradually calmed down. He knew that he had to continue hiding. He pretended to ask, "Who didn't come to this conference?" "Your Highness, only Captain Jack, who is stationed at the Fishman Island." William already knew about it, but he was just asking and putting on an act. Captain Jack had the heart to become a pirate. He might even bring his Dawn battleship to roam around. William was looking forward to the time when the 9 continents started to converge. At that time, the sea battles would be intense. Captain Jack would then be able to display his true combat power. Then he asked, "How much liquid funds does the City of Dawn have?" 75 million gold coins and 1.8 million magical stones. The magical stones are rarely used. They are usually used for the warriors' training. Odom, the butler of the City of Dawn, stood up and replied, "How many people are there in the City of Dawn?" "My lord, you have instructed us to buy young men and women as slaves every month. Therefore, the City of Dawn and the East Sea metropolis have a total of 2.3 million people." "How many warriors are there in the Dawn Army?" 90 legions, a total of 270,000 warriors. William smiled and asked again, How many members are there in the Dawn mercenary team? 3 million. The number of chosen ones is 23 million. Eric, the deputy leader of the Dawn mercenary team, stood up and replied. How many members are there in the Dawn Magic Society? Due to the influence of Space Enchanter Band, there are a total of 34,000 mages in the Magic Society in the City of Dawn. Among them, there are 6 great mages. Sia stood up and replied. Old Band was calmly drinking his tea. He had been dragged here by William. He wanted to be like the enchanter in the fortune-telling shop. He wanted to quietly study magic at home. It was a pity that William had asked him to come here. He had no choice. William could have recruited a domain warrior to make up the numbers. That domain warrior was Douglet, his mother's trump card guard. He was an epic domain warrior and a legendary boss. Ever since his mother had passed away, he had been acting as a hidden NPC in the City of Dawn. He seemed to like to tease the players. All day long, he would issue strange missions and give them equipment, gems, and medals that were not good in his eyes, but were awesome in the eyes of the players. In short, Douglet was trying to discover his unique endowment. But no matter what, whenever William approached him, Douglet would look at him as if he was a child. This made William very uncomfortable. After all, it was enough to have Lautner as his uncle. He would not be able to take it if he had more. His mother's personal guards had followed him to the City of Dawn. But Alice did not hand over the control of her personal guards to William. Hence, these 3,000 super-elfin warriors were the greatest guarantee that the City of Dawn would not be invaded by enemies. Subsequently, William narrowed his eyes and said, In that case, it's time for me to tell you something that will affect the future of the City of Dawn. Burn Cinder and the rest had long known about the 10 Years' Blood War. They did not speak. But when William told them that the 3 elves had joined forces to attack the Orc Empire, and that the City of Dawn would also participate in the war, they did not dare to believe it. Many of them looked worried. After all, that was the only Orc Empire left in the legendary continent. The strongest warrior in the Orc Empire was a pale orc. He was known as the Ice-Sealing Sword Sage. He was extremely powerful. William knew what they were thinking. He said in a deep voice, The 3 elves of the legendary continent will participate in the war. They swear to destroy the Orc Empire. The elves want to return to the legendary continent. As the Prince of the Blackleaf Elves, I have no reason to refuse to participate in the war. Besides, this war is also an opportunity for me to prove myself. To prove that I'm a true elfin prince. To prove that I'm an outstanding commander. To prove that I'm a trusted and reliable ruler. Speaking of this, many people gradually came to their senses. Why did the City Lord's words have so many meanings? To prove that I'm a reliable ruler? Gosh, does William have the ambition to become the Elfin King? At this moment, the 30 trusted subordinates were overwhelmed with emotions. They stood up and shouted, We will pledge our loyalty to our Lord and fight to the death. William narrowed his eyes. He smiled and said, Don't worry, everyone. The main force is the chosen ones. I don't have the determination to perish together with them. I want everyone to accompany me and the City of Dawn to stand at the peak of the legendary continent and even the gods' continent. When he said this, the trusted subordinates laughed again. They felt a sense of warmth in their hearts. As expected, William liked them the most. Of course, the chosen ones had to be the ones to sacrifice their lives. But Old Band, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said in a deep voice, Are the Dawn army not going? William looked at him and shook his head. We'll go. We'll go to the best army. The 50,000 advanced soldiers of the Dawn army will form a new legion. They'll go together. When Old Band heard this, he knew that he had misunderstood William. He thought that William wanted to preserve his strength in this war. But why would all the advanced soldiers go? Gosh, if all the advanced soldiers were to go, it would be a huge loss. The Space Enchanter looked awkwardly at William. He coughed and said, I didn't mean that. But if all the advanced professionals are going, what if there are any accidents? If we don't experience war, how can we become the strongest legion and warriors? Don't worry, I have my own plans. William narrowed his eyes. In the war with the Orc Empire, the soft persimmon would appear first before the hard stone. In the early stages, there were small wars involving tens of thousands of soldiers. It was not small. But what he had to do now was to use the large number of Orc legions to give the Dawn army a buff. The Invincible Legion buff. It was too awesome. Let's not talk too much. As long as he could give the 10 legions the Invincible Legion buff, these 30,000 soldiers could even defeat 300,000 soldiers under certain conditions. There were more and more professionals in the City of Dawn. Some legions with specific attributes and many years of training had formed the Legion buff. For example, a legion formed by Fire Element professionals would form the Fire buff, Ice Element, Thunder Element, and so on. But no matter what, only the Legion buff, which had never been defeated in 100 battles, was truly powerful. That was right. There was also the Dragonblood Legion buff. Jean Long. That was right. William suddenly thought of this. He vaguely remembered the Dragonblood Legion of the human empires. As long as there were more than 3,000 soldiers, the Dragonblood buff would be automatically formed. The name of the buff was a simple word. Jean Long. All attributes plus 30%. Maximum health plus 40%. Defense plus 20%. Movement speed plus 20%. Attack plus 50%. It would increase the damage of all dragons and dragon beasts by 50%. This was the super buff of the Dragonblood Legion. It was so powerful that it was abnormal. Then, what about the Dragonblood Legion buff and the Invincible Legion buff? What would it be like? The human empires had the Dragonblood Legion. But to prevent the dragons from discovering this, they rarely sent the Dragonblood Legion to battle. They could only be used as a surprise attack in some crucial battles. So even in the later stages of the game, William did not see any Dragonblood Legion buff. But William suddenly had an ambition. He wanted to create a super powerful Dragonblood Legion. Hence, William immediately dismissed the meeting. He wanted to slay the dragons within 2 months. He wanted to kill all the dragons that he could. He wanted to kill until a legendary dragon warned him. Chapter 377. There were 2 months left before the start of the 10 Years' Blood War. He had to hurry to slay the dragon. However, William did not tell the players about the upcoming main storyline mission. The players were like the village gossips. The women next door would shout a few times, and the men next door would shout a few times. The next day, they would spread the news to the entire village. To prevent the players from spreading the news to the entire continent, William would not tell the players about the mission in advance. Even though the news of the war with the orcs could be detected by some observant people, William could not allow the players to spread the news. But to create some tension, the City of Dawn had a legion of more than 200,000 soldiers. They were training on Stormy Island. Various materials, rare metals, and ironware were transported to the mysterious underground blacksmith workshop in front of the players. It was obvious. William gave the players the impression that he was going to cause trouble. The players were itching to do something. It was as if a kitten was scratching them in their arms. But William did not tell them about the upcoming mission. Of course, the City of Dawn did not have other missions, but the Dawn mercenary team did. His Royal Highness charm was so high, and he also had the handsome appearance of a saint. He had already befriended the kings and nobles of the southern region. The Dawn mercenary team had also received many quests in the Red Fire Kingdom and the Lion Kingdom. There were not many S-level missions, but there were many A and A+ level missions. It was easy to get rid of more than 1 million players. After experiencing the Crimson Blood main storyline mission, the players did not want to join the camp of the Human Grand Duchies. The players didn't want to join the Human Grand Duchies faction. After all, they were about to break through to the advanced level. They felt that joining the human Grand Duchy's faction was useless. But if they joined the camp of the kingdoms, they would not be put in an important position. It was meaningless to join a small organization. If they were killed, no one would protect them. The best choice was the Dawn Mercenary Team. The number of members in the Dawn Mercenary Team increased by 30,000 to 50,000 every day. If everything went according to plan, the City of Dawn would have won 4 million players in 2 months. That would be 70 to 80% of the players in the legendary continent. When that time came, the City of Dawn would have a place in the southern region. Meanwhile, William finally had the chance to see the little dragon. He arrived at the slaughterhouse. That was right. The only way for His Highness to find Little Rotten Dragon was to go to the magical beast slaughterhouse. This guy enjoyed the treatment that the 3 bear brothers didn't have. Therefore, in order to show off his nobility, he lived in the slaughterhouse all day long. He wanted to widen the gap between him and the 3 bear brothers. After all, life. They were comparing each other. It was the same for Beast. Little Rotten Dragon wanted to compete with the 3 bear brothers to see who ate better. There was no other way. Little Rotten Dragon only pursued this much. Noon. William arrived at the entrance of the slaughterhouse under the scorching sun. From afar, he saw a pig with a round belly lying under the sun, basking in the sun. His tongue was sticking out. He was still drooling. Look at his physique. It wasn't small. The wingspan was 6 meters. Including its tail, it was about 3 meters long. Flying would not be a problem, but it would be a little difficult to carry someone. It's not that small. If I slaughter it and eat its meat, I can eat a few meals. William rubbed his chin and thought for a while. At this moment, Little Rotten Dragon quivered and abruptly stood up. It used its nimble little head to look at its surroundings. It had only lived a few days of eating and sleeping and eating, and now there were actually unruly people who wanted to harm it. When he discovered William, his golden pupils contracted. He wanted to roar at William to not be too presumptuous. William took out a transparent crystal jar and revealed a small gap. Instantly, a tempting smell entered Little Rotten Dragon's nose. He immediately ran in front of William and rubbed his head against William's thighs. From time to time, he looked up at William with an innocent and cute gaze. "Do you want to eat it?" William held the blood essence of the blood dragon and asked. "Ayo, ayo, ayo, ayo." Little Rotten Dragon nodded frantically. "Turn on the spot." Ayo. Little Rotten Dragon flapped his wings and turned on the spot. Smoke billowed, but it couldn't hide his bright eyes that were full of desire. "Lie on the ground with your limbs drooping." Little Rotten Dragon obediently did as he was told. He was like a mangy dog. "Pretend to be dead." Ayo. Following an evil dragon's roar, Little Rotten Dragon suddenly stood up, and then fell to the ground again. It didn't move at all, and even its breathing stopped. Only the corner of its eyes never left William's small crystal jar. William glanced at the affinity between Little Rotten Dragon and William. No matter what, he had not beaten up Little Rotten Dragon and fed him well. His affinity had finally reached 850 points. Most importantly, when William was born, he had used soul control on Little Rotten Dragon. If there were no accidents, Little Rotten Dragon would never be able to betray William. Hence, William decided to give this sage blood dragon to Little Rotten Dragon. That was right. That blood dragon was a sage blood dragon. William was glad that he didn't touch the corpse in the dragon palace. Otherwise, he might not be able to come out alive. Actually, he had considered this problem at that time. Just what realm was this heavily injured blood dragon at to be able to survive from the first era until now? Then, it seemed that only a dragon king could do it. The possibility of it being a sage dragon was higher. William wasn't afraid that this blood essence would cause the Little Rotten Dragon to explode. Because this was the blood dragon's blood essence, not the blood essence of other dragons. The blood dragon's blood essence did not have any attribute. It was a great tonic for any dragon. The blood dragon in Nibelungen was besieged by countless great dragons. William couldn't guess why, but many great dragons had the intention to devour his blood essence and dragon crystal. But in the end, the blood dragon was the winner. The blood dragon's blood essence was like an elixir. Even if the little rotten dragon didn't become an immortal after eating it, it could definitely advance continuously. The blood dragon had the same plan. This meant that the blood dragon's blood essence was not enough to cause the little rotten dragon to explode. He saw. The little rotten dragon used its 2 claws to firmly grasp the crystal jar. Then, it raised its head and swallowed all the blood essence in it. It licked its lips with its tongue. There was no taste. But in the next moment, the little rotten dragon opened its eyes wide and rolled on the ground in pain. It opened its mouth and wanted to spit out what it had just eaten. It was a pity. There was no chance. Its limbs twitched nonstop. After a while, it stopped moving and fainted from the pain. The magic on its body became denser and denser. It even formed a giant magic egg that was more than 10 meters long, completely wrapping it within. Until this moment, the undulating magic aura finally stopped. But William glanced at the giant egg that was more than 10 meters tall. Then, he glanced at the slaughterhouse employees who rushed over with knives. He coughed lightly and said, "The little rotten dragon is breaking through. Don't chop him." "I see. It's a pity that the egg is so big." A butcher that weighed more than 100 kilograms resentfully retracted his large knife. The others silently shrugged their shoulders. The little rotten dragon ate and drank all day. They already had the thought of killing the little rotten dragon. It was a pity that the Lord had spoken. They could only retract their butcher knives. Other things aside, the slaughterhouse employees were all professionals. There were a total of 36 of them. They were either middle-level or high-level. All of them were tall and strong, weighing more than 200 kilograms. If they said that they did not steal the food, even a ghost would not believe it. But William was too lazy to care about how much they stole. After all, their loyalty was clear. At the very least, they wouldn't sell the magical beast meat. But the evolution time is still unknown. It's a little uncomfortable. William raised his eyebrows. He did not care about the egg. He would ask Old Band to set up a barrier to prevent outsiders from entering. After he left the slaughterhouse became a spectacle for the players again. After all, it was rare to see a giant magic egg that was more than 10 meters tall. Many players were guessing what was inside the egg. But the City of Dawn was mysterious. William would not hide many things from the players. He wanted to arouse their curiosity. In particular, the City of Dawn was his lair. Other than legendary experts, no one could enter the city, let alone steal dragon eggs. 3 days later. Nightmare Forest. The Dark City. William wore brown armor and wielded the Sword of Hex. He stood elegantly on the city wall of the Dark City. He looked at the unstoppable army of players, and his lips curled into a smile. After all, others might not know the location of the Dark City, but he knew it. The new kings of Emerald Jade and Lan Yu had just ascended to the throne. The kings were still under the control of the Red Fire Kingdom. After the departure of the Dawn Army, there were no rebellions in the 2 kingdoms. But the new king's control over the legions was at an all-time low. Hence, this chaotic city, which was filled with killers, criminals, bounty hunters, and vampires, had never been conquered. But others could forget about the Dark City. William was a person who liked to take advantage of others' misfortune. He could not forget about the Dark City. He had just led 30,000 Dawn Army soldiers and 200,000 players to attack. The regular army did not even attack. The 200,000 players charged forward. The defenders in the city only defended for a while before they knelt down and surrendered. The inside of the city was also in a mess. Some had abandoned the city while others had fled. After the death of Osman Lothar, the rebellious fellows in the city had started fighting for the position of the city lord. Many days had passed, and thousands of people had died in the city. But the new city lord had not been elected. 3 hours later, those who should be killed had been killed, and those who should run had escaped. The players had obtained another hearty victory. Besides the soldiers who had surrendered, there was no one left alive in the entire city. Because there were no good people living in the dark city. After all, kind people could not survive. William looked at the many players who were strolling excitedly in the new city. He smiled. The dark city will be renamed the Green Light City. In this nightmare forest, which is filled with chaos, dark creatures, and magical beasts, I hope to turn the Green Light City into a resting area, a supply area, and a hunting front for adventurers. Ding dong. Prompt, you have received a mission. Clean up the Green Light City. Mission introduction. The prince does not like the environment of the Green Light City. He hopes that the chosen ones can clean up the city as soon as possible. Mission difficulty. C. Mission reward. 1 to 100,000 experience points. Another clean up. We are already intermediate and we still have to do this kind of mission. But the highest limit is 100,000 experience points. Let's clean up, but it's delicious. I like this kind of mission that is not dangerous and requires no effort. It's also very simple. In fact, many players were speechless. Just a simple cleaning quest had so many rewards. But some players felt that the prince was a little obsessed with cleanliness. This could be seen from the number of sanitation workers in the City of Dawn and the East Sea metropolis. But no matter what, the players also liked to live in a beautiful city. More than 200,000 players had killed their way into the city. Besides those who had snuck out to find trouble with the magical beast. At least 100,000 players chose to accept the mission and worked hard to improve the living environment of the city. The players' work speed was much faster than the NPCs, and the quality of the work was better and cheaper. In less than a day, William guaranteed that the city, which could accommodate more than 600,000 people, would be completely new. The prince came to the city lord's residence. This was the only place that was not dirty and messy. He walked around the city lord's residence, which had been ransacked, and found that all the good things had been looted. But he still used his soul perception. He walked in every room. Gradually, William came to Osmond's bedroom. Suddenly, he noticed that there was a secret room in the bedroom. It was a very large secret room. The prince raised his eyebrows. He punched. Bang! The secret door was shattered. William blew on the left hand of the thunder god, which was flashing with lightning, and stepped into the room. As for the traps? Sorry, there was no such thing as a trap in front of the left hand of the thunder god. Oh, did someone live here before? He glanced at the secret room, which was fully equipped with daily necessities. There were many empty bookshelves, some equipment for placing crystal balls, beds, chairs, and so on. His gaze gradually locked on the table. There was a letter here. William used his insight. It was a very normal envelope. There was no magical aura. When he stretched out his hand and took out the letter, there was a ring in the envelope. He first looked at the letter, and his gaze gradually became surprised. Welcome, Lord of the City of Dawn. As Osmond Lothar's life mentor, I often taught him not to go against you. It's a pity that this child no longer believes in my words for the sake of the blood essence of the blood dragon and to become the king of the blood race. I know. He will die in the Nibelungen. And the other vampires will also die in the Nibelungen. But only you, who is shrouded in mystery. You will be the final victor. Perhaps you will see that the city lord's mansion has been ransacked. But in my eyes, you are not here for the mere gold coins. Therefore, I have also left you a space ring. There are many interesting things in it. Take it as an early meeting gift from me. William thought that this was the end. He was a little dumbfounded. In the end, the last 2 sentences were written in the letter. Oh yes. Please send my regards to the fortune-teller of the City of Dawn. Signature, Aldrich, a friend who does not want to be an enemy. After seeing the signature, William completely understood. It was no wonder that Osmond Lothar could become the king of the vampires. He had obtained the reincarnation of the divination god's support. But, after Osmond had met him, his fate had completely changed. And this divination god wanted William to send his regards to the fortune-teller of the City of Dawn? Gosh! How could a person who had obtained the memories of his previous life and knew that he was the reincarnation of the divination god greet another fortune-teller? How could it be possible? But he had done so. This meant that Moses had been the goddess of magic in her previous life. But the most important thing was, who the hell said that William was not here for the gold coins? Come on, you crippled old man, stand up and speak. Chapter 378. Aldrich, the reincarnation of the god of divination. William had heard of his name in his previous life. His divination skills were very accurate and could help him avoid disasters. When he had played as a tombstone player, this old fellow with a broken leg was still alive and well. One look and William could tell that he was a long-lived fellow. From the letter and the space ring that he had left behind, it was enough to show that this old man was very shrewd. After all, Aldrich was the reincarnation of a god who had awakened his memories. Yet, he spoke to William in such an equal tone. William could not imagine how tolerant Aldrich was. It's no wonder that those who can hide can live. This saying is right. There was also a rumor. It was about the god of divination. He was the earliest god to awaken in the gods' continent. Remember, he was the earliest. He had awakened much earlier than the other gods. This meant that he might have excavated some treasures from the mythological era. But because the cultivation method of the god of divination was too unique, his progress was very slow. Compared to the other reincarnations of the gods, his combat power was not very strong. This also caused him to remain mysterious. Basically, it was very difficult for people to recognize him. But the players loved divination skills. It was a pity that divination skills were not effective for the chosen ones. But in the beginning, many players learned a method of divination. That was to let the god of divination predict the fortunes of hostile and friendly NPCs. The player would then decide whether to kill the NPC, follow him, or do something that would give them enough benefit. Aldrich, the god of divination, had appeared in front of the players 3 times. He had divined the fortunes of 3 players 3 times. But it was these 3 opportunities that allowed the 3 players to obtain great benefit. From then on, the god of divination became a hot commodity in the eyes of the players. But, now that the prince was rich, some hidden NPCs who would suddenly give away wealth when they were in a good mood and ignore people when they were in a bad mood were no longer sought after by the players. The Dark City was conquered. Its main purpose was to expand the territory of the City of Dawn. It was also to become the front line for the City of Dawn to slay the dragons. Hence, the cities that William had seized from the Dark faction would automatically become part of his territory. This was just like how he had occupied the East Sea metropolis. The human empire could not interfere. Then in this not-so-small nightmare forest, about 1/3 of it would belong to him. In the magical world, when he developed into a neutral faction like the City of Dawn, his influence would be so great that no one would dare to offend him. He would also have many soldiers that he had nowhere to use. Then, he would not care about whether the territory was good or not, and whether the resources were abundant. The size of the territory was the most important thing. For example, the Red Fire Kingdom's development was limited, and it was not close to the sea. So, he had to find ways to annex the 2 grand duchies to expand his power, because no matter how barren the resources were, as long as there were people and magic, they would definitely be able to create value. There were many devil dens filled with dark creatures in Nightmare Forest. The number of magical beasts and animals was very small, but this place was rich in obsidian, black crystal, and some ordinary ore veins. Obsidian was a material used by magicians to create barriers and portals. As for the black crystal, it was also a material used to make altars. With these 2 points, it won't be a loss for me to maintain the operation of this city in the future. There are many devil's dens in Nightmare Forest. If there's another darkness invasion in the future, this green light city will definitely be in danger. But I have many players under me. Although they have killed enough dark creatures, it's a game. In order to become stronger, you have to kill them even if you want to vomit. More importantly, in every devil den that has not been destroyed, there will be some bosses that can be considered to be very valuable to the players. They can also use the heads of dark creatures to exchange for contribution points. This is also the key reason why the players are tempted to kill the dark creatures. Even if the players are not willing to come, some of the adventures in Nightmare Forest will also bring a lot of benefits to this supply city. William sighed. As the level of the players increased, the value of these creatures would increase. But what happened next was, it was not as easy to control the players. In the next 2 days, William summoned Old Band and asked him to build a teleportation portal that connected the City of Dawn, the East Sea metropolis, and even the surrounding Grand Duchies. After all, the teleportation portal was the best way to develop a city. When the teleportation portal was officially completed, William's dragon slaying plan had already begun. The first dragon that he was going to kill was a black dragon in the southern section of Nightmare Forest. The black dragons in the gods' world were different from the dragon race in the DNN world. The black dragons here preferred to live in dark, hidden caves, not in the smelly bathwater. They were skilled in dark elemental draconic magic, not spitting acid. But the black dragons seemed to possess dark elements. As they were great dragons, they would not be bewitched by darkness. They would not conspire with the dark creatures. They would even be hostile to each other. This was because the places that dark dragons liked to live in were often demon dens created by dark creatures. They could dig holes. But who had seen a great dragon dig holes by itself instead of robbing others? The black dragons had a very unique taste. They could eat magical beasts, animals, and humans. Their favorite was the underground creatures with dark elements. There was a dragon race that liked to target dark creatures. Besides the great light dragons, there was also the black dragons. Other than hiding in its nest and sleeping for a long time, the black dragon would search for demon dens that had never been discovered. Then, like a bandit, it would rush into the demon den and eat and kill indiscriminately. Skeletons, dark knights, and other meaty things tasted like crispy fries in its mouth. It was extremely delicious. The teleportation portal that led to the dark world would not be destroyed by the black dragons. As long as the greedy creatures were not completely provoked, they would not kill the goose that laid golden eggs. As long as the teleportation portal was not destroyed, after a few months or a few years, there would be a large number of dark creatures. Then, the black dragons would be able to devour another wave of dark creatures. But the black dragons were also not good creatures. They liked to kill and were very vengeful. When the dark creatures were tired of eating them, they would occasionally find a human town to change their taste. So, the black dragons were one of the main targets of the dragon slaying team. William once again formed a dragon slaying team. This time, there were more members. There were 8 legendary professionals, including Burned Cinder, Lautner, Diablo, and 30 epic Grandmaster professionals. They brought along 6 super heavy crossbows and 3 large magic nets made of mithril and orichalcum. It was not because the black dragon was very strong. It was because the black dragon had many orcs, trolls, and gnolls. Logically speaking, in order to deal with these people who had clans, His Royal Highness should have led the players as cannon fodder and wiped them all out in one wave. But time was tight and the mission was important. If he used the Legion on a large scale, it would definitely attract the attention of some black dragons. He did not want others to know that he had crazily slaughtered the dragons. William decided to at least have a Dragon Blood Legion before he thought about killing all the black dragons. It was enough for him to do it secretly. After William gave the blood dragon's crystal to Moses, their affinity for each other had increased to 999 points. Seeing the look of disbelief and excitement on Moses' face, he didn't even know what to say. From then on, no matter what scrolls the handsome young prince wanted, Moses would give him a stack of them without hesitation. So, the most powerful dragon-slaying team in the southern region could sneak into the catacombs and kill the black dragons at their lair. They had dozens of invisibility and aura-shielding scrolls. It was the third day after they conquered Green Light City. The group traveled to the south of the Nightmare Forest. The Nightmare Forest was actually a rather strange place. There was very little greenery in the forest. There was a rumor that this green forest, which was full of life, had become like this overnight because of a curse or plague hundreds of years ago. On that day, some people heard the roars of dragons, the roars of devils, and even the most terrifying sighs from the abyss. In short, it was a rumor. There would definitely be many puzzling things, but no matter what, there were some things in this forest that had not been solved. William did not know if he would be able to uncover this secret. Walking in the Nightmare Forest, one could not help but feel that the atmosphere was very oppressive. These trees were very tall, but they looked very strange. They looked like demon branches with long nails, and some trees even looked like human faces. It was very easy to cause some adventurers to feel fear. However, this situation depended on who it was. To scare William and his group, one had to be at least a realm warrior. Time passed. The group walked from noon until 10 o'clock in the evening. William calculated the time. When he was about to rest, he suddenly hid behind a tree. The others were not slow either. In the next second they hid in different places. No one made a sound. An orc patrol team came from the front. There were 10 of them. One of the orc captains, who had a strong physique, sneakily scanned the surroundings. He wiped his saliva and said, "Quick, take out that wild boar and roast it. After eating, we'll change shift." A young orc threw the wild boar heavily on the ground. He used his weapon to stab the boar from its anus to its mouth. He did not pluck out the hair or the intestines. He wanted to roast the boar and eat it. The other orcs were used to it. The young orc said in a muffled voice, "A group of people came to the territory. Master didn't let us walk around. He was afraid that this matter would be leaked." "Shut your mouth. What if this matter is leaked? My lord, please tell us." The other orcs were interested in gossiping. The orc captain swept a glance at the other fellows and pretended to speak in a deep voice. "This news came from the mouth of my cousin's army leader, third uncle. Don't spread it around. I heard that there's a dark magus called Madraku and a nightmare warrior called Adolf. They're both famous powerhouses in the underground world. They're planning to join hands with our master to do something big." "What big thing?" "It's related to the human kingdom. No, it seems to be related to the dark city that was attacked 2 days ago. But I drank too much that day and forgot about it." The orc captain scratched his head, taking out the wine he brought with him and drinking it in large mouthfuls. However, the orcs were a group of blabbermouth. They could not hide any secrets. The black dragon did not allow them to wander around. He understood one thing. That was, when an orc knew a secret, the entire orc tribe would know. So the best way to prevent the secret from being leaked was to not let them wander around. It was a pity. Dragon's plan, but God disposes. These orcs did not know that above their heads, behind the trees beside them, there were 30 people hiding. When William heard the news, he frowned slightly. He muttered to himself, "I didn't find trouble with Madiko, but he's starting to covet my Green Light City. What's the meaning of this? Does he want to be the Lord of Green Light? It's not impossible. After all, Madiko is considered a villain. If I can capture him alive, I can use soul control to find him a wife who doesn't want to have sex with him. Then, I can give him a green halo. It's not a big deal." Of course, although he said this, the prince was filled with murderous intent again. The threat of this guy, Makamalku, was not big to him. But he loved to stir up trouble. And he especially liked to join forces with others. He was the kind of person that had to be guarded against. Now that the Green Light City had just been occupied, many of the major environments in the city had not been figured out. William did not know how many secret tunnels there were under the city that led to this city. If he had left the southern region and led his troops to the northernmost lands, this place might really have been wiped out by someone. The mental chain was released. William used his mental strength to tell everyone to leave. He did not need to say much. The professionals present were not fools. They were all Grandmaster bosses. If they were discovered by this group of middle-level orcs, they would rather fall from the trees and die. But the situation had changed. On the contrary, William could not make up his mind. Should he find some helpers, or should he kill them directly? If there were no accidents, right now there should only be the Black Dragon, his trusted subordinates, Adolf, Medico, and the others in the dragon's lair. They were in a meeting, and it was time to kill them all. Therefore, William did not delay any longer. He led everyone to the dragon's lair. As they got closer to the Black Dragon's lair, they would encounter more orcs and voles. It was to the point where they could no longer hide. They crushed 2 scrolls and swaggered towards the Black Dragon's lair. William narrowed his eyes. If he had guessed correctly, after he chased Medico and Adolf away from the southeastern region, they had hidden in the Dark City. In the end, before they could snatch the position of the City Lord, the City of Dawn had been destroyed. Now, he was really angry, so he decided to take revenge. But I bullied you. So what? I bullied you every day. I bullied you once every version. I won't kill you. I'll make you die of anger. Chapter 379. The location of the Black Dragon's lair was obvious. It was located in the center of many clans, surrounded by tens of thousands of orcs and gnolls. It was a valley full of withered grass. This was the location of the dragon's lair. There were many guards and patrols at the entrance of the valley. Among them, there were a dozen trolls who acted as a facade. However, it was difficult for these big fellows to guard the entrance. They were the type that could fall asleep while standing. Even if the great dragon threatened them, it would only be effective for a short period of time. After all, William had once studied a dead troll. This group of big fellows was a few meters tall, but their brains were only the size of a baby's fist, hence. In front of the guards, His Royal Highness and his men swaggered through the streets. Their footsteps were very light, so light that they were not as loud as the trolls' snoring. They did not attract the attention of others. After all, the effect of the invisibility scroll was to refract light so that the enemy could not see them. The scent scroll was to prevent the group of orcs with dog noses from smelling their scent. Not long after, William and his entourage walked into the interior of the valley. The surroundings were bare stones, withered trees, and weeds. There was not a trace of green. After all, this was the devil's lair of dark creatures. It had been completely eroded by dark elements. If they did not use magic to expel these dark elements, they would have to wait for at least tens or hundreds of years for plants that could adapt to the light to grow again. As for the large hole above their heads, it was obvious that this was the entrance of the Black Dragon. However, even if they were invisible and shielded their scent, they could not avoid using battle energy when flying. Then, they would definitely expose themselves. This was also the reason why they could not fly down openly. The entrance of the dragon's lair was very large. There were only 4 tall, advanced orcs with heavy axes guarding the entrance. William used his mental strength to speak. After everyone quietly entered the dragon's lair, the last 4 subordinates attacked at the same time. The moment they exposed themselves, they covered the orc's mouth. The short swords in their hands pierced the orc's temple and directly into its brain. It was a fatal blow. As long as it was not an extraordinary creature, no matter how much health points it had, it was very difficult for NPCs and magical beasts to survive such an attack. It could be said that the higher one's realm was, the fewer fatal injuries one would suffer. Even if one's heart was heavily injured, one would still be fine. However, the brain was still the fatal weakness of many creatures. As for the so-called Beyonder creatures, they were those with special talents or perversely strong vitality. For example, the dragon race relied on dragon crystals to survive. However, this also depended on the dragon's rank. Only a dragon that was at least at the epic rank could survive with its head pierced through. He could even use the energy within the dragon crystal to slowly heal the injuries in his head. This was because an epic-ranked dragon could completely fuse the dragon soul into the dragon crystal. Just like epic-ranked humans, harpies, and elves, they could condense various types of elemental bodies after reaching the epic rank. If an opponent of the same level couldn't find their weaknesses, it would be very difficult to kill them. After the 4 Grandmasters of the City of Dawn defeated the orc, they took off the orc's equipment and put it on themselves. They were going to pretend to be orcs for the time being. After all, this was the Black Dragon's lair. Without the Black Dragon's summons, most people wouldn't dare to come here. As William and his companions ventured deeper into the dragon's lair, they took out their scrolls and placed magic barriers at the entrance of the cave behind them, as well as some places outside the cave entrance. From this moment onwards, if the dragon-slaying incident was discovered, the 4 Grandmasters would have to face the attacks of countless dragon clans. All the devil's dens that were occupied by black dragons would undergo great changes. At the very least, the caves would become spacious and tall. This was a path that continuously extended downward. Although the surface of the road was considered very hard, there were still many dragon footprints. There were a few magic lamps hanging on the surrounding walls, but in such a gloomy environment, there were no guards. They did not know how many meters they had walked down. When His Royal Highness was getting a little impatient, his field of vision finally opened up. He gestured for everyone to be careful, and then he walked out alone. After everyone entered the dragon lair, they discovered that there was actually a majestic underground palace inside. The prince's gaze froze for a moment. The entire palace was pitch black in color and was built entirely out of obsidian. This former devil's den was built in the obsidian or vein, because this underground space shone brightly under the illumination of the magic lamp. It was obvious that the surroundings were filled with obsidian. But this dragon's palace had many similarities with the palace of Nibelungen. Could it be that the black dragon's inherited memories are so rich? Or has he seen some ancient ruins? William stroked his chin. He knew the hiding place of the black dragon. But in his previous life, the hunting team that killed the black dragon were NPCs, not players. William knew very little about the black dragon's memories. It was good enough that he knew its approximate location. Moreover, the time when the dragon was slain was in the version of the Chaos of the Dragons. It was a very, very long time in the future. At that time, the black dragon had become an epic great dragon. It was extremely powerful, and the players couldn't deal with it. The door is not closed. I can see the great dragon's reflection. Are we going in now? Burned Cinder raised his eyebrows. After his experience in Nibelungen, he was traumatized by the dragon's palace. Let's go in. We're here to kill the dragon. William glanced at some of the windows in the palace. He said to the 26 Grandmaster experts, "Climb up those windows. When I give a warning, take out the giant crossbows and shoot at the black dragon. Otherwise, if you reveal your invisibility, the black dragon will discover you very quickly." "Understood, my lord." "Let's go." William waved his hand. They did not have much time left for their invisibility. They had to seize the opportunity to attack. Invisible figures spread out from all directions. They nimbly climbed up the windows of the palace. William brought Burned Cinder and the others to the side of the palace. He scanned the open door. There were no other guards. In particular, it was obvious that neither the Black Dragon nor McColl believed that someone could come all the way here for a sneak attack. He stretched out his invisible head and looked inside. Gosh, it was a large-scale ambush with hundreds of people and a black dragon. The prince gulped. The situation was not looking good. The contents were different from what he had imagined. The black dragon, which was more than 20 meters long, was coiled on its dragon throne. There were 6 pale orcs at the guru level beside it, so there was no problem here. But among the people gathered below, there were not only Madrid, Adolf, but also some Grandmaster vampires and high-level vampires. It was obvious that there were more than 20 Grandmaster professionals. Besides William's old enemies, there were also the Red Blood who had slipped through the net. Now, they had gathered together to take revenge on him. The prince couldn't help but perk up his ears to listen to the voice. "Haha, you want me to lead the attack on the Dark City, and then hand over the city to you. You're dreaming. Not only will I anger the Lord of the City of Dawn, but I will also face the attack of hundreds of thousands of soldiers from the City of Dawn. If you're still so insincere, why don't you leave?" The black dragon Sagrita used his huge eyes to glance at the people below. His eyes were full of distrust. Although he was greedy, he knew that the City of Dawn was very powerful. At least now was not the time to provoke them. "Great Lord of the Nightmare Forest, Sagrita, have you not heard of the title of Dragon Slayer?" Madrid asked. Before the black dragon could speak, he continued in a deep voice, "I believe that no one understands the mentality of the Lord of the City of Dawn better than me. He's a tyrant. He won't allow a potential threat to be near his territory. In the past, my master in the snow mountain of the East Sea was killed because the Lord of the City of Dawn sent his army. Even now I still feel heartache." At this point, many of those who knew the truth, such as the demon knight Adolf, couldn't help but twitch their mouth. "We were the ones slaying the dragon, but someone else intercepted us. Don't you need to come up with a draft when you lie?" But the black dragon started to ponder. Although he knew that the Iron Nation army attacked first, the Dragon Slayer was still the Lord of the City of Dawn. Regardless of whether the Black Dragon and the Fire Dragon were on good terms, every dragon hated the Dragon Slayer. Madrid continued to say, "Not only did he kill my former master, but he also killed a white dragon in the extreme north. He has a dragon of an unknown race at home. But this is not the most important thing. I discovered another problem." "What is it?" The black dragon could not help but ask. He did not expect William to kill 2 of his kind. "I don't know what the great dragon that he reared swallowed, but it turned into a 10-meter large magic egg. It seems to have entered a state of breakthrough. Can I understand that the Lord of the City of Dawn is using some evil method to kill the dragon and rear it?" Madrid said. "It was really killing people." When the black dragon Sagrita heard this, he immediately twisted his huge body and slowly climbed up. He placed his huge head in front of Madrid, and the breath of his nostrils blew on the latter's face. Madrid did not dodge. The black dragon continued to say, "Is what you said true? It's absolutely true. If there's any falsehood, I will be destroyed by the gods." Since the beginning of the 4th era, oaths have become the most useless nonsense in this world. The black dragon's pupils contracted slightly. Then he said, "But I've decided to believe you. But do you think that now is the time to attack Greenlight City?" "Of course not now." Makuriko laughed wickedly. "I've heard from some sources that the elves will wage war against the beastmen of the extreme north. If there are no accidents, the current Lord of the City of Dawn, as the Blackleaf Elven Prince, will definitely lead troops to war. And at that moment, that will be the weakest time for the City of Dawn. It will also be the time for us to attack the Dark City. Before we attack, I can send people to the Dark City through the tunnel and destroy the teleportation portal. I wonder if the great Lord Sagrita is confident enough to occupy this city with us? When the time comes, my friends from the Blood race want to occupy this city. Half of the population will be your food. The other half will be given to me? What do you think?" just as the black dragon Sagrita was about to nod. Suddenly, a roar sounded. "Madrid, if you don't attack now, when will you?" Everyone was shocked. Subsequently, several heavy-duty crossbow bolts emitted sonic booms. They followed a dazzling trajectory and hit the black dragon's wings and back. Roar! The black dragon roared in shock and anger. His pair of golden eyes became brighter, as if they were burning with flames. He did not hesitate and immediately unleashed his dragon's breath at Madrid and the rest. In that second, countless people were stunned. Many of the surviving vampires were stunned. Adolphe suddenly clenched his fist. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. Madrid, this cunning bastard, was planning to slay the black dragon again. Everything he had said just now had been prepared to trick the black dragon. Mn, he didn't tell me. Is he afraid that I'll spill the beans? We've cooperated so many times. But this is a black dragon. Adolphe was extremely excited. He was also a darkness element professional. If he could bathe in the black dragon's blood essence, his power would increase to a new level. Of course, these people did not dare to resist the dragon's speech magic. They activated their battle energy and magic shields to dodge. But they all had one thing in common. The moment they dodged the dragon's speech magic, they attacked the black dragon and the 6 Grandmaster Orcs at the same time. After all, they were decisive people. Since they were here to negotiate, killing the black dragon was also a profitable business, but Makorku was really dumbfounded. He could not help but glance at the heavy-duty crossbow bolts above his head and the guy who had exposed himself. Wasn't this guy from the City of Dawn? I've been tricked again. I'm not here to slay the dragon. But it's too late to say anything now. Even if I tell them that the City of Dawn has arrived, the black dragon in front of me is enraged. How can I explain this to an enraged black dragon? Maku dodged the black dragon's breath without hesitation. Immediately, he turned into several black shadows and fled in all directions. For him, out of the 36 stratagems, escaping was the best, but William's Eye of Thunder had already locked onto him. This pair of Eye of Thunder had the ability to see through illusions, barriers, and phantoms. In terms of judgment, it crushed Madrid's phantoms by more than one level. At that moment, a bolt of lightning flashed. William pierced through half of the Dragon Palace. After knocking down many innocent passers-by, he arrived in front of one of the black shadows. When Madrid turned his head, he felt that his neck was completely grabbed. When he turned his head, he saw William. But William did not slow down. He extended his hand and grabbed Madrid's neck. Then, he forcefully knocked Madrid's body through the palace wall. Bang! Both of them broke through the wall. Subsequently, William viciously slammed Madrid to the ground. Bang! A huge figure appeared in a large pit. Next, another punch. Bang! Madrid did not even have time to speak. Half of his face caved in. Bang! The second punch landed. The Black Warlock's head had become a pile of minced meat. His health points were reduced to 0. An Archmage could fight a close combat king with just 2 punches. Then, a soul shock wave swept in all directions. Then, William used the mental strangulation on Madrid's corpse. At this moment, William sliced Madrid's corpse into 10 pieces and stuffed them into the space ring. F***CK, I don't believe you can resurrect. If you can resurrect, it really has nothing to do with me not killing you. The prince glanced at the dragon palace that was still in chaos and couldn't help but smirk. Plotting against me? What a joke. Let's see who's plotting against whom. Chapter 380. It was not over for William to kill the dark warlock Madrak. When he returned to the City of Dawn, he would make Moses grind Madrak's bones into ashes. The prince grinned, but just as he turned his head around, he saw something. An indescribable shock wave surged towards him. In the next moment, he flew backward for hundreds of meters and crashed heavily against the wall. The palace in front of him, which was hundreds of meters tall, exploded from the inside out. Like a mushroom cloud, flames, combat aura, and magic flew in all directions along with the broken eaves and broken walls. God knows how many unlucky people were hit by them. In the midst of the endless black flames, there was a black dragon covered in blood. He extended his hideous head and spewed dragon breath in all directions. The dragon's might was unparalleled. At this moment, this black dragon was like a dragon king. The black dragon breath that was hundreds of meters long covered the sky and earth. When he turned his head, it burned every inch of the air and space. No one could avoid it. In just a few seconds, a quarter of the unlucky souls screamed and died tragically under the black torrent. After the black dragon breath, apart from a few armors and weapons that were left behind, not even their bones were left behind. The scene was full of destruction. There was also a corrosive black aura everywhere. William raised his head and looked at the black dragon in disbelief. Sagrita's body length suddenly increased by tens of meters. He was an adult black dragon who was half a step away from reaching the epic level. He had been hiding his strength just now. D*MN. The prince gritted his teeth. The black dragon's sudden transformation had caused the death of several epic bosses in the City of Dawn. But he did not have much to say. It was normal to slay a dragon and be killed by a dragon. Those who were not him would definitely have different intentions. He would just kill them. He unsheathed his long sword and charged at the huge dragon that had rushed out of the flames. At the same time, Burned Cinder and the rest went to deal with those who wanted to escape. They prevented them from escaping and attracting the reinforcements of the Black Dragon clan. This time, he wanted to kill everyone in the dragon's lair. After all, the bounty hunter Adolf and the vampires had just fought to the death with the dark dragon, causing more than half of them to be dead or injured. Those who were not dead were also injured. Now was the time to get rid of them. Therefore, the situation suddenly changed. Many vampires and bounty hunters had just escaped from the Black Dragon's mouth when they were attacked by Burned Cinder and the rest. The City of Dawn's 7 legendary bosses and more than 10 epic bosses attacked at the same time. Except for a few Grandmaster professionals who blocked the attack, the advanced professionals who were killed were instantly decapitated and died without a whole corpse. Sagrita slowly walked out of the flames. He glanced at William, who was charging at him, and turned his head to bite off the heavy arrow that was stuck in his body. When he turned back, half of the heavy arrow, which was stained with dragon blood, shot out from his mouth towards William. However, the prince did not dodge at all. He gripped the sword of curse tightly and flicked his wrist upwards. Swoosh! The blade of the sword and the tip of the arrow collided. The heavy arrow, which was filled with boundless power, could only be split into two by William's sword. The arrow flew past him from both sides, and with the sound of air exploding, it landed heavily on the wall, the end deeply embedded. In the next moment, the ground around William started to sink. His body instantly appeared above the dark dragon's head. His sword energy pierced through the sun, accompanied by countless lightning bolts, and heavily struck the dark dragon's head. Bang! Countless thunder battle energy and dragon scale fragments scattered on the ground. The black dragon didn't dodge at all. He used his dragon horn to forcibly block the sword. Even though the sword had almost chopped off half of his dragon horn, even though his entire body was covered in lightning, it still didn't cause him much harm. After that, he heavily slammed his right dragon claw on the ground. Boom! Like a tidal wave, dark elements rose from the depths of the ground. In this underground space that was filled with dark elements, countless dark elements filled the entire ruins of the Dragon Palace in a short period of time. They covered the battlefield between the two of them. Both of them were completely surrounded. William felt that his body was surrounded by dark elements. On the information panel, negative buffs such as battle energy recovery speed, movement speed, and attack power were continuously displayed. It was another fake domain. But His Royal Highness was calm and composed. His body was surrounded by the power of thunder. He did not take it too seriously, because he was no longer the same as before. Just like in the extreme north, he had the body of thunder and the body of diamond, which could reduce many negative buff. Therefore, even if the dark dragon swung its tail at him, he could still nimbly turn his body to avoid it. He stomped on the air and used the momentum to get to the back of the dark dragon. He used the light of dawn on his sword and slashed down with all his might. Swish! The sword of thunder, which was tens of meters long, fell from the sky and pierced deeply into the back of the dark dragon. The huge dark dragon suddenly collapsed on the ground. He felt that his spine was about to break. However, he was a dark dragon. He was a great dragon. He was the top super creature in the gods' continent. Dragon's speech magic. Dark imprisonment. Bang! Countless black energy formed hands and trapped William. His physical strength failed. Subsequently, the dark dragon, which was tens of meters long, kept rolling. The dark dragon disregarded his own wings and caused William to lose tens of thousands of health points. After all, he was crushed by the dark dragon's weight. He was a half-elf who was less than 2 meters tall. The dark dragon was surprised that he was not crushed into meat paste. He even started to suspect that William had dragon blood. Otherwise, how could his skin be so thick? William would definitely not tell him that his endowment made him weaker than the shield-bearers. It was not easy for him to escape from the dragon's speech magic. Just as he was about to retreat, a black figure appeared in front of him again. The dark dragon lifted his sword to block. Boom! The dark dragon swung its tail. William was once again smashed into the wall like a cannonball. The violent dark dragon did not stop. He extended his claws and crushed the wall as if it was tofu. He wanted to crush William to death. But William's reaction was faster. A second before the dragon's claws touched his body, he appeared in front of the dark dragon with the power of thunder. He punched with lightning. It was an uppercut. Bang! Countless lightning bolts struck the dragon's jaws hundreds of meters into the sky. When they hit the ceiling, they spread out like a spider web and turned into countless lightning bolts that flowed in the air. It was extremely dazzling. The scales on this gigantic dragon's chin fell off one by one. It raised its head and fell to the ground with a loud bang. But before William could attack again, roar! Another roar was heard. The sound waves penetrated all directions. The wave-like black rock elements constantly eroded William's body, making it difficult for him to move an inch in this area. Every step he took was extremely difficult. He was like a camel walking in a sandstorm, wishing to drill into the sand to avoid the damage in front of him. But it was not over yet. Dragon's speech magic. Dark swords. Countless sharp swords made of dark elements formed a sword formation. Then, they engulfed William in an overwhelming manner. Hundreds, thousands of swords. William could not detect them. He immediately activated his sacred light shield. Tens of small shields covered his entire body. A series of crackling and banging noises could be heard. A few seconds later, only a few of William's super protective ultimate skills were left after being pierced through. His body was full of wounds, and his rune armor was on the verge of shattering. But his health points were still above 60%. The black dragon could not believe it. This move was definitely considered half a dragon's speech forbidden spell. It did not make sense that it could break William's shield but not cause any damage. William wanted to say that when the dark swords penetrated the shield and caused damage, the passive ability of the Heart of Thunder would take effect. His health points would be restored by 2%. As long as it was not a single target forbidden spell, it was not a fatal injury to the black dragon. William was afraid that the rune armor would be completely destroyed, so he kept it in his body, revealing his perfect upper body. This made the dragon even angrier. William transformed into lightning again and charged at the black dragon. It was a pity. It was another dragon's speech magic. The might of the Dragon King. The authentication of physical strength, and agility failed. Bang! William was pressed to the ground by an indescribable force. He even knelt on the ground. The prince could not believe his eyes when he landed on the ground. The might of the Dragon King was not an ordinary dragon's speech magic. Anyone who could obtain this dragon's speech magic had to be related to the Dragon King. It could even be said that the Black Dragon had obtained the inheritance of the Black Dragon King. But William did not have time to think. The Black Dragon took the opportunity to spit out dragon's breath. He wanted to turn William into ashes. Countless corrosive dark elements came at him. William clenched his fist. It was the embodiment of holy thunder. The authentication of the might of the Dragon King had failed. His entire body transformed into a shadow of golden lightning. It was the embodiment of golden lightning. William ran amidst the dark dragon's breath. Subsequently, he dashed into the Black Dragon's mouth at a speed that was unimaginable to the Black Dragon. The moment the dragon's breath stopped, a heavy punch landed on the Black Dragon's throat. Bang! Endless lightning spewed out from the Black Dragon's cavity like Godzilla's atomic breath. A bulge appeared on the Black Dragon's neck. Fresh blood and lightning seeped out continuously. The dragon's breath suddenly stopped. Next, a lightning strike was added to the destructive sword energy of the Sword of Hegni. Hence, there was a loud boom. Countless strands of sword chi exploded in his body. Blood seeped out from the Black Dragon's scales, eyes, nose, ears, and every crevice. Arg! A sorrowful cry could be heard. The Black Dragon could not imagine that someone could forcefully enter his mouth while he was spitting out dragon's breath. But he could not imagine where William had learned the embodiment of holy lightning. Because his golden eyes were slowly losing their glow. His thoughts were slowing down. His soul, which had not been completely absorbed into the dragon crystal, was slowly dissolving, until the Black Dragon's tall and majestic body fell to the ground in a crooked manner rumble. The tremors of the earth spread in all directions. The false domain dissipated. The dense black elements gradually dissipated. The other fellows who were still fighting looked at the prince, who once again had no hair and no clothes on his upper body. He slowly opened the Black Dragon's mouth and walked out of it. That strong body. That blood-stained body. His body, which was full of power, appeared in everyone's line of sight at this moment. At this moment, William held the Sword of Hegni, which was dripping with blood. He raised his head and walked out. He was like a dragon slayer in a legendary story. He had slain a dragon by himself. He glanced at Adolf and the other vampires. Without any expression, he kept the bleeding Black Dragon in his space ring. William looked at Burned Cinder and the rest of the vampires, who had completely blocked the exit. He smiled. "Oh, are you trying to escape?" Adolf's mouth twitched. He looked at the formation of both sides and then at the Lord of the City of Dawn, who had just slain a dragon. He threw the legendary sword in his hand to the ground. Then, with a mournful expression, he ran to the prince and knelt down. As he cried, he hugged his thigh and shook it. "Your Highness, I was wrong. I deserved to die. But I was bewitched by Madri Ku and the group of vampires. I used to be an excellent professional, and I used to be an excellent mercenary. Please don't kill me." William tried to move his leg, but it did not move. It had to be said. Adolf's strength was not bad. It was quite strong. But the prince did not notice that Adolf was trying his best to collect the dragon's blood on the ground and on his body. Just as William was looking at the remaining 20 vampires, a voice suddenly rang out. One of the Grandmaster vampires, who was covered in wounds, suddenly laughed at himself. Subsequently, he licked the blood on his long sword and charged at William and the rest with an indomitable aura. The other vampires did the same. Adolf, a bounty hunter, could surrender. But what about them? They were mortal enemies. Rather than being sold as slaves and being tortured in the future, they would rather be like real warriors. They would rather be like real warriors and die under the enemy's blade. After all, they had lived humiliated lives in the human world. They had enjoyed it, been disliked, and had been abused. They had also abused others. But he had really had enough of this never-ending life. The battle at the Black Dragon's lair. It was not the most thrilling battle in William's life, but it was definitely the most satisfying battle he had ever fought. Not only did the slaying of the dragon give him a large amount of experience points, but he also obtained the legendary bootlicker, Adolf. That was right. The prince decided to spare Adolf's life. After all, Adolf had evolved from an epic bloodline to a legendary bloodline. Naturally, he had extraordinary abilities. If he could control Adolf well, he could be of use to William. Moreover, the 10-year blood battle was about to begin. It was a good idea to let Adolf be the vanguard at the same time. He also obtained an instance dungeon crystal. But this instance dungeon crystal was for the players to die basically. He wouldn't be able to make a lot of money, but he still had to release what he could. If he could make a profit, he would. His Royal Highness would never do anything that would cause him to lose money. However, none of the above was the most important thing. The key was a secret within the Black Dragon's lair. It was a secret regarding the destruction of the Nightmare Forest and an ancient mystery realm. Chapter 381. The Black Dragon was slaughtered. The vampires were annihilated. The only survivor of the Dark City was the devil warrior Adolf. The Black Dragon was dead. His clansmen did not manage to rescue the vampires. They fled in all directions. But killing a dragon was not William's goal. He wanted to form a dragon's blood legion. He needed at least 2 or 3 great dragons. Hence, in the days that followed, the dragon-slaying squads of the City of Dawn went on a killing spree in the Nightmare Forest. Regardless of whether they were great dragons with clansmen or solitary great dragons, as long as they were in the Nightmare Forest and had a clear criminal history, they would not be able to escape from William's clutches. Until now, there were only 7 days left before the 10 years of blood war. As luck would have it, William had managed to gather the 5-colored Dragonblood Legion. This was a legion with over 3,500 people. But at the same time, William, who was strolling around the City of Dawn, suddenly passed by someone. He turned to look at the middle-aged man, who seemed to be a foreigner. He was dressed in a long golden noble robe. There was no servant behind him, but he had a dignified aura that made people not dare to approach him. The middle-aged man did not turn back. He picked up a piece of ice cake made by an ice mage and curiously tasted it. Then, the middle-aged man was astonished. It was delicious. He looked at William and asked softly, "Have you killed enough?" William narrowed his eyes and slowly said, "It's not a question of whether it's enough. It depends on the situation." "Oh, do you mean to continue?" William shook his head sadly. He said in a declarative tone, "Dragons are not more noble than humans, and humans are not inferior to dragons. Everything in the world, every race, every living being, was born from this land and this world. Their lives should be free and equal. On the day that they were created, they were not equal. The dragons were powerful, the elves had long lives, the Serafkin could fly freely in the sky, the humans were more intelligent, and the dwarfs had more dexterous hands. These things seem to be equal, and they all have unique abilities. But between humans and races, before they reach the extreme, they are filled with class differences and inequality. The City of Dawn represents justice, so I have to do things that are just. If I give up on justice because of a great golden dragon's warning, I'm sorry. I can't do it. Just like how I would never compromise in the face of the dark invasion. Just like when I face the son of darkness, I will never retreat. My heart is towards light, my heart is towards justice." Hearing these words, or in other words, after hearing the words Great Golden Dragon, the middle-aged man couldn't help but smile. He had a better impression of William. Immediately after, his expression immediately changed. He was here to look for trouble. There was no reason for this little brat to have a good impression of him just because he saw through his identity and praised him for his greatness and gave him a good speech. As such, his expression immediately became serious as he said, "They have made mistakes, and you have indeed acted for the sake of the race's justice. But do you dare to deny that it wasn't for the dragon blood and dragon crystal?" William didn't shake his head. He only continued to say, "I won't think too much. I'll just go with the flow. Just like how dragons wouldn't eat humans just because they begged for mercy. Humans wouldn't not step on an ant just because it was right under their noses. There was no fairness in this world, but justice existed in the hearts of men. I'm the kind of person who can't bear to see weak creatures being bullied. When I have the ability to act righteously, I'll do it, no matter who the enemy is or how powerful the enemy is. Lord Golden Dragon, you can think of me as a domineering lord who loves his people. Therefore, I won't allow any evil dragons, cruel magical beasts, or bloodthirsty orcs to appear in my territory." Immediately after, William continued to say, "The great golden dragon has come to the City of Dawn. I don't know if you want to kill me or what. But I believe that Lord Golden Dragon is on the side of justice. I also believe that the great golden dragon won't do anything wrong. Therefore, I'm willing to accept whatever punishment you want me to receive. As long as you don't hurt my people, don't hurt my subordinates. Come on. I'm willing to pay any price for the justice in my heart." William slowly closed his eyes. With a face full of glory, he accepted the punishment and even death. But the middle-aged man was dumbfounded by William's verbal attacks. Justice, light, kindness. One after another, he was accused of crimes. This was indeed a headache. There were some legendary great dragons in the southern region, but there were even fewer golden dragons. But the golden dragons liked to meddle in other people's business. They were also diplomats who mediated the conflicts between the dragons and the humans. They liked to transform into humans and live in the human cities. They liked to participate in the affairs of the humans. They could even see the golden dragons stopping the humans from starting a civil war on the battlefield, but it had to be said. William's eloquence had convinced him. The main reason was that William was handsome. The legendary golden dragon couldn't resist this godly talent that didn't discriminate between races or factions, but only between light and darkness. It could not be helped. The same verbal attack would have different effects in different people's mouth. What was this? If one was handsome, one could travel the world. If one was not handsome, one would not be able to do anything. Moreover, William had killed elemental dragons. The golden dragon looked deeply at the Lord of the City of Dawn. Then, he thought about his mother, who was at the same level as him. The corners of his mouth twitched. He patted William's shoulder and said, "You're right. I hate all unjust and criminal acts. I'm also a messenger of justice and a pioneer of light. But even if these elemental dragons commit crimes and eat humans..." The golden dragon clenched his fists tightly. To a highly intelligent creature like him, it was extremely disgusting for a dragon to eat humans. It was as disgusting as eating their own kind. Then, he continued, "But I have to say something that's difficult. This is about the races. There are not many dragons. Don't attack the dragons anymore. Even if the dragons have committed many evil deeds, they are still underage in the eyes of some people. If not, I won't be the one to look for you next time. Take care." After saying that, the golden dragon looked around and was about to leave. But William was moved to tears. He grabbed the golden dragon's hand and said with a choked voice, "Great golden dragon, I've finally met a like-minded person after meeting you. Lord Golden Dragon, please don't leave in a hurry." The City of Dawn was huge. It was also very small. This is a city where all the good races live together. I like peace. I hate wars. Especially wars between the races. Therefore, I've always wished for the City of Dawn to become a city where all the good races live together. Lord Golden Dragon, as a messenger of justice, Why don't you stay in the City of Dawn for a few more days and see if there are any policies that need to be changed? After all, I'm only a 21-year-old half-elf. I'm still very young to be a lord. I really hope that Lord Golden Dragon can teach me how to deal with racial peace. The Golden Dragon scanned the bustling street. There were elves, humans, Serafkin, and dwarves. This small city was comparable to the capital of a human empire. There were too many races and humans from too many countries, but the City of Dawn in front of him had an inexplicable sense of harmony. This made him very curious. The Golden Dragon wanted to tell William, "It's good enough for a lord like you. Why would I teach you? At least, other than those annoying chosen ones, I've never seen such a harmonious city." "But you want me to teach you?" The middle-aged man had a reluctant look on his face. William continued to plead. The middle-aged man coughed a few times. His Royal Highness almost bowed. The middle-aged man proudly helped the prince up and said in a deep voice, "That's right. You're still very young. There might be some unfair policies in the city. I'll stay here for a period of time and teach you how to be a righteous and kind lord." "Thank you very much, thank you very much. I didn't expect to be taught by the great Golden Dragon." The prince relied on his relationship with the Golden Dragon to curry favor with the Golden Dragon. The Golden Dragon, who had wanted to warn him, had unexpectedly stayed in the City of Dawn. William did not know how long it had been, but he did not need a lot of reasons to curry favor with a legendary Golden Dragon. If there was a chance, he would definitely not let it go. And the reason why the Golden Dragon wanted to stay. What was the reason? Of course. But there was another important point. The legendary great dragons of the dragon race had a mission to protect the weak dragon race. But it was only limited to the strong great dragons protecting the weak great dragons. But the relationship between the elemental dragons and the metal dragons was not very good. If this was still the First Era, if this was not the gods' continent ruled by the humans, if there were enough dragons, the internal strife between the dragons would last for countless years. In the First Era, the main force of the internal strife was the war between the elemental dragons and the metal dragons. Except for a few rare dragons, the bad relationship between the metal dragons and the elemental dragons had been going on since the mythological era. If the two dragons of the same level encountered each other, there would definitely be a fight. The Golden Dragon seemed to have come to warn William, but he was doing it for the sake of the dragon race. He wanted to see the bigger picture. But if the elemental dragon was killed, the Golden Dragon might be secretly happy. A legendary gold dragon stayed in the City of Dawn to guide William as the Lord of Dawn. In fact, the Golden Dragon wanted to understand why there was no chaos in the City of Dawn when there were so many races living in it. The prince would not tell him that it was because of his endowment. He wanted to tell him, when all his citizens had a good impression of him of more than 500 points, they would not easily fight for him. He could tell him, if the Golden Dragon did not stay here for 8 to 10 years, he would not understand. But if he stayed here for 8 to 10 years, he might even forget whether he was a member of the Dragon Clan or not. When William returned to the City Lord's palace, he stroked his chin and licked his lips. "I want to ask if anyone wants to sneak attack my City of Dawn?" "Sure. I'll leave with my army tomorrow. I'll tell the Golden Dragon that I'm going to lead my army to fight the orcs. I don't believe that he won't help me look after the city. Come and steal. There's a legendary great dragon here. Come and steal. Whether it's the City of Greenlight, the East Sea Metropolis, or the City of Dawn, you can steal. This proud, righteous, kind, and meddlesome legendary dragon will turn all of you into ashes." Chapter 382. The legendary gold dragon, Kalinsky. Kalinsky was very sad. He wanted to give William some suggestions to improve the City of Dawn's policies. He wanted to show off his knowledge and wisdom. But after he stayed in the City of Dawn for a few days, he discovered a problem. Some policies were suitable in other cities, but they were useless in the City of Dawn. Some of the City of Dawn's policies were outdated in his eyes, but they were perfectly implemented. So, he stayed for 3 days. He found a loophole in the policies. The citizens of various races lived in the City of Dawn, and they enjoyed unimaginable happiness. Kalensky could clearly feel the joy of his family. There were no conflicts between the adults, and the children of various races could play together, go to school, go on adventures, work, and join the army. The elves would not despise the half-elf bloodline, and the humans would not despise the dwarves for being short. In the City of Dawn, Kalensky saw a lot of truth, kindness, and beauty. It was difficult to discover the scheming of the human kingdoms and empires in the City of Dawn. It had to be said. This strange situation terrified Kalensky. What exactly is the reason why the races living here can live in complete harmony, to the point where there are no conflicts between their own races? Kalensky was a gold dragon. He had lived for thousands of years. Even though he had not experienced the Second Era, he was born in the early stages of the Third Era. Over the past thousands of years, ever since he had the ability to transform, he had often lived in the human society. He had experienced many things. He was a knowledgeable dragon. He had been a teacher for the children in the Red Fire Kingdom. He had also been a bard in the Sunset Empire. He had also been a librarian in the library of the Frost Empire. The books he had read were piled up like a mountain. The things he knew were unbelievable. In any case, he believed that he had great wisdom and knew a lot of knowledge. But because he understood and knew more, he could not imagine how powerful the insignificant lord of the City of Dawn was. How could he allow so many races to live together? Is it because of his charisma? No, I have to ask. The legendary gold dragon Kalensky took a deep breath. He looked at the deserted streets and shook his head in bewilderment. He walked to the city lord's palace. He glanced at the 2 elven guards at the door. Did they change players? Where's the lord of the City of Dawn? I'm Kalensky. The 2 elven guards looked at each other and said in a deep voice, His lordship left long ago. This is a letter he asked me to deliver to you. Left? Kalensky was confused. When did that happen? Subsequently. His face twitched, and he immediately knew what was going on. He understood his own affairs. Every time he fell into a state of incomprehension, he would lose sight of everything else in front of him, as long as no one hurt him or sensed danger. Then, he would meditate in his own world, constantly thinking about the course of events and the result. Often, he would be immersed in this for days, months, or even years. Perhaps the Lord of the City of Dawn had greeted him, but he did not hear him. Kalensky picked up the letter that William had written to him in Draconic, and the corners of his mouth curled up. Her handwriting was not very good, and it was a little small, but this little half-elf was still very thoughtful. This was because this letter was written in the Golden Dragon clan's language. Therefore, Kalensky casually asked, Does your lord like the Dragon clan's language? Yes, his lordship loves the Dragon clan's language, especially the Golden Dragon clan's language. He said that the Golden Dragon clan's language has a wild and unrestrained beauty. The elven guard immediately replied. He did not know how many times he had repeated this sentence in his heart. Oh, I see. The arrogant Kalensky nodded expressionlessly. He could not help but smile arrogantly in his heart. He turned his head and stuffed the letter into his space ring. He read the contents of the letter. The righteous lord of the City of Dawn will lead a 100,000-strong army to conquer the evil Orc Empire in the far north. He hoped that this kind and righteous messenger would help guard this beautiful City of Dawn. Is this considered helping? This is what I should do. As long as I am a righteous creature, I should protect this beauty. Kalensky surveyed the magnificent City of Dawn. He would help look after the city first. Although there were some epic professions in the city. But they were too weak. They were silly and would not meddle in other people's business. When it came to righteousness, Kalensky had to do it. Sigh, I forgot to ask when the Lord of the City of Dawn will return. Kalensky slapped his head. He would think about this when the time came. He wanted to see if he could figure out the problems of the City of Dawn. If he could not figure out the crux of the matter, he would ask the Lord of the City of Dawn how the City of Dawn was so peaceful, stable, and free of conflict. At this moment, Prince William, who had been on the road for 3 days, had led a 100,000-strong army and more than 1.8 million players to the far north. In this world of ice and snow, the temperature was -40 degrees Celsius. Millions of players had arrived, and they were extremely excited. Everywhere, the players were shooting snowballs, building snowmen, and skating. After all, the players had lived in the southeastern region for a long time in the wind and rain. They had enough of the monotonous lifestyle. Except for those who could not leave the sea, most of the players were extremely happy when they arrived at the far north. However, many of the players changed from shooting snowballs to shooting violent ice balls. The snowmen piled up, and there might be a player hiding in them. This led many young snow elves to go astray. But apart from these harmless things, the players were still very excited. Since the day they received the SSS-level mission, many of the players had not recovered from the shock. They received a mission that could be described as a forced buying and selling mission. They had to buy winter coats in the far north. Initially, the players refused to do so, but Prince William said that he was afraid that they would freeze to death. If they did not buy the coats in the City of Dawn, they would not be allowed to participate in the mission. The players were dumbfounded. They could only pinch their noses and spend some money to participate in this damned activity. Other things aside, it was an SSS-level mission. It was the only mission in the God's world and all the continents. The players were envious of it. Using gold coins to buy a leather coat from a florist. What kind of leather was this? It was a little pungent. Why was there no explanation? Even insight was not useful? In any case, after the players scolded the developers of the gods on the forum, they obediently bought 2 sets of thick leather coat. But ever since they arrived at the far north, many of the players who took off their coats discovered a problem. If they did not activate their battle energy shields, their health points would drop rapidly. The weather was so cold that they could freeze to death. When they saw the price of the coats in the Frost Kingdom, they were even more dumbfounded. It was extremely expensive. Other than the rich bosses, no one could afford it. It was not only a warm coat, but it was also of very beautiful fashion. It was made of magical beast skin with winter protection and even a tribute. TSK. When the NPC shops started to sell attribute clothing, the game was not far from closing. Many players continuously scolded on the forum. But this game did not have a game designer. The game officials only looked at the forum expressionlessly. They thought to themselves that the NPCs were the ones who brought them there. It had nothing to do with them, but time gradually passed, and it was now 3 days later. Even though the mission had not officially begun, when they saw batches of elven legions walking out of the teleportation hall in neat steps and wearing high-quality furry armor, the players' blood was boiling. Because of the sense of honor of participating in the super mainline mission, they couldn't stop their excitement. At this moment, the forum was full of discussions about the super main storyline mission of the 10 Years of Blood War. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. Did you see that? The Blackleaf Elves, Moonlight Elves, and Snow Elves. The 3 major elven races of the legendary continent are fighting against the Orc Empire. There are so many armies. If there are no accidents, the number of NPCs participating in this war will reach tens of millions, or even more. The female player, I'm Little Monster, said, I can't take it anymore. The Blackleaf Elves are so handsome. Their little faces are red from the cold. It's so interesting. The Snow Elves' hair is so white and beautiful. The Moonlight Elves are not bad either. Did you see Princess Annie? She's like a little penguin. She's so cute, super cute. I'm a fan. Speaking of which, did you notice something? Even among these elves, His Royal Highness is still the prettiest. His bald head is indeed very beautiful. Ahem, don't change the topic. You've all received the mission. Did you see the exchange list for this super main storyline mission? Battle Achievement List. You can use Battle Achievement to exchange for equipment, secret manuals, skills, tools, positions, NPC guards, and even wives from the Dawn mercenary team. Ahem, don't talk about wives. There are many core players in the mercenary team. The wives that have been assigned to them are all good women who came from the City of Dawn's brothels. His Royal Highness is obviously treating us as honest people. D*MN, I can't take it anymore. Yes. I've already reported this reward function to the officials. It's simply too frustrating. How is this finding a wife? It's obviously finding countless NPCs to cuckold. I've already given up on the option to reward the core members with wives. Everyone, just ignore it. Ahem, as an outstanding core member, I really want to say that my wife has a lot of unlockable positions. Boss, I'll do it. Alright. Meanwhile, a group of professional players gathered in a large ice house. They warmed themselves by the stove and sat on the hot brick bed, discussing the benefits of the upcoming war. Chuliochio put his hands in his sleeves and looked like a hard-working old man. Exhaling white smoke, he said, the most important option on the contribution chart is that if you obtain 10,000 points, you'll get an NPC personal guard. It's possible for humans, half-elves, elves, and dwarves. The bloodline level is uncertain, but it's marked as the same level. The officials are really generous this time. They actually intend to reward our NPC guards. Isn't this equivalent to a follower? Chongli Jioga could not help but laugh. Xiao Ayan shook her head. Of course not. Pets are not absolutely loyal. They will run away if they are abused. Not to mention the personal guards that had been exchanged. They were once intelligent NPCs with lives and families. If you don't have enough affinity with these guards, they might leave on their own. This is the nature of the world of gods. However, the strength of NPCs is obvious to all. Whoever obtains a boss-type personal guard and boosts its favorability to the max would basically be the symbol of invincibility in group battles. It's just that the game officials didn't give any introduction to personal guards. Just as the players were discussing how to get rid of William's subordinates who were not very loyal, and whose bloodlines were only at the middle level, the players were discussing how to get rid of them. Prince William was participating in a meeting. It was a meeting regarding the Vanguard army. The three major elven clans did not want to send their legions to their death. Hence, Prince William glanced at the mission rewards and thought about how he should take a cut from them. He waved his hand. The mission of the Vanguard army, he accepted it. This was a Vanguard army that was formed by 1.8 million middle-level players. That's right. This was not considered a Vanguard army. According to the number of people, it was considered a large-scale attack. Chapter 383. For the sake of benefits and long-term development, William chose to accept this difficult challenge. They were the vanguard of the Empire War. However, if the army of 1.8 million players really charged forward, there was no doubt that there would be orc powerhouses who would interfere and secretly launch a powerful move. Various domains and forbidden spells would be released continuously. When the players saw that the situation was not good, the possibility of them escaping was very high. If they were defeated, the loss was a small matter. The City of Dawn would be humiliated. When there were too many players, even if the enemy experts attacked, William would not be able to stop them. Let's put it this way. There was an unwritten rule in the Gods' continent. The battlefields were divided into low-level, middle-level, and high-level. The low-level battlefields were for beginner and middle-level professionals. The middle-level battlefields were for advanced and grandmaster professionals. The high-level battlefields were for epic and legendary professionals. Experts would not lower their status to participate in wars that did not belong to them. But the unwritten rule was an unwritten rule. When there were too many players and they could revive, one should not think that any of the forces would abide by the rules. So William wanted to use this group of players as the vanguard. He could not make it seem like there were too many players, and they could not join forces to attack the same place. Hence, William quickly divided the players into 18 legions of 100,000 people. They were named the 1st Death Legion and the 18th Death Legion. The mission of the players was to attack the 18 iron fortresses occupied by the Frost Orc Empire. The Orc Empire was located in the northernmost part of the land. The Grand Duchy of the North and the Snow Elves were on the left and right sides of the Orc Empire. At the border of these three forces, the Orc Empire had built 18 large iron fortresses. The Frost Empire and the Snow Elves had also built 8 iron fortresses at the border to resist the invasion of the Orc Empire. In short, the three forces were surrounding each other's iron fortresses. They constantly launched invasions and wars or fought each other for resources. This situation had been going on for thousands of years. It did not matter whether the iron fortresses could be conquered or not. They were the vanguards. The key was to fight with fire, to fight with courage, and to fight with fearlessness in the first battle. That was enough. Just as William was about to spend some money and offer some rewards to deceive the players. It was the second last night before the war. The Snow Elves' capital city welcomed an envoy from the Frost Empire. After knowing the purpose of this Grand Magister's visit, the higher-ups of the three elven clans had no choice but to hold a meeting. Snow Elf King Bernice Frost, the third elder of the Moonlight Elves, Pletty Moonlight, the second elder of the Blackleaf Elves, Anderson Blackleaf. Ever since Kronos had led the Dark Army on Moonlight Island, the Moonlight Elves who had retreated from Moonlight Island had yet to elect an Elf King. Great Elder Camelot was the only remaining saint of the Moonlight Elves. He had replaced the Elf King and was in charge of all the affairs of the Moonlight Elf. The Blackleaf Elf King did not come. However, the second elder of the Blackleaf Elves, Anderson Blackleaf, was his younger brother. He was also a legendary-level powerhouse. He would represent the Blackleaf Elf King to handle all military missions in this war. Actually, there was no other way. Since the three elven tribes were waging war against the Orc Empire, they needed a commander-in-chief. The Blackleaf Elven King and the Great Elder of the Moonlight Elves didn't want to come over because they didn't want to argue here. And the most important thing was that this was the Frost Forest, and the enemy they were facing was the Orc Empire that also lived in the extreme north. In this extreme north, if they wanted to attack the fortress, they wanted to climb the snowy mountains with only a few trees to destroy the Orc Empire. The Snow Elves were far more experienced than them and knew how to fight this war. In particular, the Snow Elf King, Frost King, and Ice Queen was not just a woman. She was a saint. TSK. A female saint? She was one of the few existences in the gods' continent. She was comparable to a god on the verge of extinction. Bernice Frost just stood there. She was full of reasons, excuses, and power. Just one sentence. Don't argue with a woman, and don't argue with a female saint and reason with her. Hence, as a legendary-level warrior, the Blackleaf Elf King knew that he was no match for her in a verbal battle. He was also no match for her in a physical fight. He might even be beaten up by the couple. Hence, of course, he was not interested in coming over to be bullied. As for the Great Elder of the Moonlight Elves, Camelot, who was known as the strongest saint among the three tribes, was too lazy to fight with a female elf king for control. As long as the three tribes sent out their troops reasonably and did not send one of them to die, the two of them did not intend to be bullied until the final battle. In the conference hall, many legendary and epic professionals from the three tribes were gathered. There were also some elven princes and princesses from the three tribes. William was not considered to have the lowest realm, but he was considered to be one of the weaker ones. However, the City of Dawn had not only brought 100,000 regular soldiers, but also 1.8 million intermediate players. It was a great honor for him. He sat in the front row, at the table in the center of the three tribes. How should he put it? He now represented a faction and the City of Dawn. No one would treat him like a child at this time. However, at the southernmost end of the table was the envoy of the Frost Empire. He was the Time Grand Enchanter, Kirin Time. He was dressed in a snow-white magic robe and had an old face. He had a long white beard and looked like an ordinary old man. He did not have the aura of a Grand Enchanter. At this moment, he stood up and looked around. Greetings to the Elven Queen, Second Elder Blackleaf, Third Elder Moonlight, and all my friends. Bernice Frost nodded slightly. Blackleaf and Moonlight returned the greeting. Everyone stood up and bowed to the Time Grand Enchanter as a sign of respect. In the next moment, Kirin Time looked at William and smiled warmly. Of course, I have to thank the Lord of the City of Dawn. Without Prince William's help, the Grand Duchy of the North would have become a wasteland. My king has asked me to bring a gift of gratitude. I hope that you will not reject it. William stood up and smiled. You're too kind, great Enchanter Kirin. The humans and elves have been allies for many eras. This is what I should do. Kirin smiled at William and looked at Bernice Frost. He went straight to the point. My king has no objections to the three major elven tribes waging war against the Orc Empire. The humans have no objections either. But what? Does he want to object? Let him come over and talk. I'll wait here. I also want to know if the Arctic belongs to him or me. And what humans? Can the Frost Empire represent the humans of the legendary continent? Or does he represent the human race of the 9 continents? Bernice Frost sneered, interrupting Kirin's words. The corners of Kirin's mouth twitched. He knew that this was not an easy task, but he was willing to do it himself. The Empire Conference was held. He was immersed in time. When he regained his senses, everyone was looking at him and the imperial edict in his hand. Motherf *Ker. I'm really unlucky to have to reason with a female saint. However, Kirin wasn't too weak. He was the official chief enchanter of the Frost Empire, the honorary director of the Royal Magic Academy, and the chief minister of the cabinet. He was not as powerful as the Elven Queen, but he had the support of the entire Frost Empire. He could not lie, and he was not allowed to lie. So, Kirin just chuckled and explained, Your Majesty, you misunderstood. The Empire has no intention of stopping the elves from going to war. We just want to participate in this war. We want to participate. We don't want to participate. I hope that Your Majesty understands what I mean. As soon as he said that, the elves in the room did not look too good. Since the 3 races dared to start this war, they must have enough confidence to win. Although there would be losses, this price had been calculated by the elves, and it was also within the range of the 3 races' leaders. The most important one was, there seemed to be very few resources in the Arctic. But the Arctic supported the snow elves, behemoths, frost giants, frost dragons, and an orc empire with tens of millions of people. That meant that there were definitely a lot of resources here, or even a lot. The main purpose of the Frost Empire's participation in the war was not to share the resources. The prince sighed. This little butterfly, still changed the direction of the plot. The Grand Duchy of the Northern region had a space fold and completely became a mortal enemy. The Frost Empire had secretly lost a lot, and the border with the Orc Empire was completely isolated. This was the key reason why the Frost Empire did not join the 10-year bloody war plot. But now that the 3 elves were fighting, the Frost Empire still wanted to take the opportunity to get a piece of the pie. Not to mention anything else. The Orc Empire was very strong. But they could survive from the Second Era until now because no one intended to touch them. The Frost Empire had always intended to use it as a training ground. But everything had its pros and cons. If the Frost Empire participated in this war, it could also reduce a lot of the 3 elves' losses. At least, it would not be like the previous life. After the 10-year bloody war, the population of the 3 elves plummeted. Although the quality of the army returned to the peak of the Second Era, the losses were still too great, so there was no chance for them to rise again. And the Frost Empire's participation. It seemed that the three elves would get less resources, but the problem of reducing the population would not be as serious as in his previous life. Bernice was expressionless. No one knew what she was thinking. She suddenly said, "How do we participate?" "Everything will be led by the Queen, and the Grand Duchy of the Northern region will be supporting," Kieran Time said softly. Bernice narrowed her eyes. "Well, the vanguard army the day after tomorrow, the Grand Duchy of the Northern region will be responsible for 8 military fortresses. You know what to do." 8? Kieran could not help but be a little confused. "You have a problem with that? Didn't you say you wanted to participate?" Bernice sneered. Kieran Time's mouth twitched. "You said the elves would be the main force, and we would be the support. There are a total of 18 fortresses, and you want us to fight 8? That's F*King main force, right? And then again, what's there to fight for? Everyone is here for resources, for the mineral veins and materials behind the fortress. Damn. No wonder the Queen was so domineering. She was waiting for him here. He could not refuse." Kieran Time sighed. He pondered for a while and said in a low voice, "Okay, everything will be led by the Queen." "Good, you will stay here in the future as the liaison between the two military alliances." "Ahem, there's a specialist for this." "I don't have to, no, the three elves have many time element professionals. Please guide me, great enchanter Kieran." Kieran could not help but pucker his lips when he heard such a direct reply. He was so angry. He might even have to stay here until the end of the war, but William's eyes suddenly lit up. It had to be said. Kieran Time. In the later stages of the game, he was the only time element sage in the legendary continent. Bernice had good foresight. It was a good idea to kidnap him and make him teach the time element professionals. Not only could Old Leather find a teacher. He suddenly thought of a good thing. William narrowed his eyes and looked deeply at old Kieran Time. "Brother, I'm definitely going to have a relationship with you." Kieran Time glanced at William. He realized that William was the most pleasing to the eye in the entire conference hall. He silently added 180 affinity points to him. In between, their gazes collided. Instantly, sparks flew. Chapter 384. This meeting would not end in a short time. They also discussed the military movements of both sides, the number of legions to be sent, when to fight, when to retreat, the exchange of resources and information. In short, they wanted to completely destroy the Orc Empire. This was not something that could be done in a few days. It was a war that would last for many years. Until now, the Orc Empire had sensed the large-scale movements of the Elven Legion. As for their 18 fortresses, they had also been increasing their troops over the past few days. There were at least 80,000 beastmen stationed in each fortress, besides most of the middle-level orcs. There were also many advanced and grandmaster orcs, trolls, magical beasts, and even some frost giants and behemoths that were controlled by magic existed. In other words, the vanguard of the Dawn mercenary team was only the flag-bearer. No one expected William to take down any of the military fortresses. He just wanted the invincible vanguard to consume the military resources of the Orc Empire. It was a snowy night. In the north of the Orc Empire, it was an endless stretch of snow-capped mountains that stretched as far as the eye could see. On top of the snowy mountain, there were many dark and sturdy orc cities. At this moment, the cities were all billowing black smoke. From time to time, there would even be flames soaring into the sky. This was because these orc cities were also huge logistics bases. Now, this huge machine of the Orc Empire was operating at full speed. In front of these cities, besides the 18 military fortresses, there was also a great ice wall built against the mountains. The wall was 50 meters high and 1,800 kilometers long. It surrounded the snowy mountain behind it. This great wall. It was called the Black Great Wall. because this was the Great Wall built by the devils during the darkness invasion of the Second Era. When the devils launched the first darkness invasion, they first came to this land in the extreme north. They built many steel cities in this place that no one wanted to live. Even the Black Great Wall, which was used to defend against attacks, had been used by the orcs until now. But it was also here. The devils raised the flag of war against the masters of the gods' continent. So, the three elven tribes planned to destroy the current orc empire. They wanted revenge, because as early as countless years ago, the darkness invasion did not bring any danger to the elves. After all, the elves were too powerful at that time. They lived in the center of the gods' continent, in the boundless green sea, under the protection of the World Tree. No one would come to such a damned place like the northernmost land, nor would they care about this place. Therefore, the problem that the darkness invasion posed was more of a threat to the humans and the winged race. As the master of the Second Era, although the elf clan was unwilling to pay attention to the demon clan, they also understood that this was an era of changing the master of the continent. However, the elves still did not attack the devils. They only wanted to preserve their strength and let the winged race and the humans deplete the darkness invasion army. Unfortunately, the humans and the harpies had nothing to fear. Wherever the demons attacked, they retreated. Weren't they just homes, territories, mineral veins, and resources? I don't want anything else. Everything was given to the demons. But in this way, the elves were in a bit of a dilemma. This allowed the Nephilim army to fight all the way to the center of the gods' continent, near the edge of the forest where the elves resided. But at that time, it was already too late. The elves had allowed the darkness invasion to continue to expand. Demonic dens had sprung up everywhere, and there were more and more dark creatures. The situation had reached a point where it was difficult for them to stop it. Hence, under the blessings of the World Tree and the decree of the Lord of the Elves, the elven army walked out of the forest. They took the initiative to attack the demon clan. However, there were too many dark creatures. There were too many demons. The war situation was far more complicated and intense than the elves had imagined. They suffered greater losses. The darkness invasion was not something that the elves could face alone. It was a war that all the intelligent races should join forces to fight. It was a pity it was too late. It was too late. At that time, the elven army was fighting everywhere. The epic, legendary, and saints were fighting against the devils and their underlings, the low-end intelligent creatures in the gods' continent, the orcs. However, no one had expected that there were 10 saints from the demon clan who went deep into the forest alone. They committed suicide by blowing up their bodies and the sacred weapons of the demon clan to completely destroy the World Tree. Hence, the greatest support of the elves was blown into pieces. The home of the elves and their sacred land were destroyed. They took drastic measures. Ever since then, although the elves were powerful, they were already in an era of decline. When the winged race, the humans and the dwarves saw that the situation was not good, they chose to join forces to face the darkness invasion. That was when 12 powerful saints gradually appeared in the human race and led the humans to become the masters of the Third Era. Hence, now, if the humans and the elves wanted to destroy the Orc Empire, apart from removing the 18 spikes in the ice and snow, the most important thing was the Black Great Wall. In a word, as long as they could destroy the Great Wall, they would be able to attack the snowy mountains and destroy the steel cities. They would also be able to occupy the countless resources behind the snowy mountains. However, if the Black Great Wall that was built in the Second Era could be destroyed so easily, it would be very simple. Under the unspoken rule that saints and legends were not allowed to massacre the enemy soldiers. This Black Great Wall had been strengthened by countless spells. The sorcerer's forbidden spell could only leave some marks on it. The magic cannon could only create a hole on it. Therefore, this Black Great Wall was also known as the most difficult obstacle to overcome in the legendary continent. Now, on this Great Wall, there was a person every 10 steps, an arrow tower every 30 steps, and a magic cannon every 100 steps. There was no end to it. There was no end to it. At the same time, an orc wearing iron armor and covered in snow was looking at the 18 fortresses in the distance with his brownish-yellow eyes. Beside him, there was a bare-armed demon with strange patterns all over his body. The devil's body was taller and stronger. Whether in terms of physical fitness or other aspects, they were more powerful than the orc. This was because the devil's race was the same as the elves and the devils. They were the best humanoid, intelligent races in the two worlds. They belonged to a race with almost no weaknesses. However, the invasion of the darkness in the Second Era ended in the defeat of the devil's race. They suffered countless casualties, and almost none of them returned to the dark world. Now, they could only struggle at death's door in the remote areas of the 9 continents. They even had to submit to their former servants. These orcs belonged to the lowly creatures of the gods' continent. But it had to be said, this legendary devil professional was full of respect for the orc in front of him. This was because the icebound sword sage was an absolute powerhouse. He did not have the blood of the pale orcs. He did not have the strong body of some orcs. He was short and had very little black hair on his chest. The hair on the top of his head was sparse and almost hairless. It even made people feel a little funny when they looked at it. But he had the heart of a powerhouse. He had the strength of a true powerhouse. That was him. He entered the Saint's State at the end of the Second Era. With the help of the Black Great Wall, he protected the defeated orcs and devils. He settled down in the far north and protected them until now. The icebound sword sage. He was the only saint in the legendary continent that belonged to the Dark Camp. Gertie Icebound, the king of the Orc Empire, the seemingly funny guy, suddenly turned around and asked in a cold tone, "Ogre, how long do you think the elves will take to conquer the 18 fortresses outside?" The legendary devil thought for a while and said, "If they want to conquer all of them regardless of the cost, they won't need half a year or even 3 months. But if they want to conquer the Great Wall, I don't know how long it will take. At least, they will have countless casualties." Gertie chuckled. "I think so too. But I know that the Ice Frost Empire has also joined the war." "Well," Ogre clenched his fists and narrowed his eyes. If someone hadn't discovered the problem of space folding, the Ice Frost Empire's army in the northern region would have been killed. They wouldn't have had the chance to join the war. Gertie shook off the snow on his body and sneered. "It's rumored that the elven prince did this. Things are indeed a little troublesome." Ogre sighed. In the face of the elves' attack, some people in the dark world had already predicted it. They had acted in advance and caused the problem of space folding in the Grand Duchy of the northern region. They wanted the Orc Empire to further deplete the strength of the elves. Unfortunately, this kind of natural wonder space problem could only be activated, but not accelerated. In fact, even if there was no space saint to accelerate, the space folding would still happen. After it was activated, the speed would still be fast and would not attract too much attention. But coincidentally, there was a small accident in this matter that was personally controlled and calculated by the King of Darkness. Gertie did not want to think about the little elven prince. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "This war will start. Whether the humans of the Ice Frost Empire join the war or not. The Orc Empire under my feet and everyone in the territory will do their best to cause damage to the elves and the humans. But I hope. Don't forget your promise." This sentence. It was not meant for Ogre. But the next moment, a legendary devil lord suddenly appeared. He looked at the Orc Saint with a smile. His eyes were filled with respect, but he was cursing the ugly guy in his heart. He said with a smile, "Your Majesty is right. The darkness invasion is just the beginning. We demons will replace this group of trash and continue to join forces with the orcs. When the darkness invasion officially begins, the gods' continent will be engulfed by the darkness sooner or later. At that time, the orcs will become the true masters of this continent. After all, we dark creatures do not like to live under the sun. The gods' continent, In the end, we still have to rely on you orcs. Gertie nodded expressionlessly. He suddenly asked, "Am I handsome?" The Devil Lord was stunned, but he quickly recovered and immediately boasted, "According to the eyes of the race, your majesty is the most handsome orc I have ever seen." Bang! A punch. The legendary Devil Lord's head was gone. As for the headless corpse, it was quickly sealed in ice. Gertie's punching speed and valiant strength made the legendary Devil Lord unable to resist or react at all. Subsequently, he gently pushed the frozen corpse down. Crack! The ice shattered. The corpse turned into countless crystal-clear snowflakes and drifted away with the wind. Gertie raised his eyebrows. "Hypocrite! Get the dark world to change an emissary. I want one that lies less." "Yes, the most handsome, and most valiant His Majesty in the God's continent." Ogre lowered his head and said in a deep voice. The corners of Gertie's mouth curled up slightly. "That's right. As the most handsome man in the God's continent, how can I be the most handsome orc?" Chapter 385. The prince did not know that an ugly person was competing with him for the position of God of Handsome. Of course, even if William knew, he was not afraid. In terms of appearance, he did not admit that he was the second best in the God's continent. Just this bit of confidence was enough for him to have. After all, the gift of being handsome was unheard of, not to mention seeing it. At this moment, he was enjoying the snow and drinking with Kieran time in the house. They looked at each other with a flirtatious look in their eyes. When he saw the ring that Kieran handed over, he didn't feel good at all, because the gifts from the Frost Empire were too generous. It was inhumanly generous, other than the 200 times 200 times 200 space ring. 10 million gold coins, 300,000 magical stones, 30,000 magical crystals, and 10,000 kilograms of mithril, orichalcum, adamantine, purple gold, and other rare metals. The value alone was enough for the City of Dawn to arm 30,000 soldiers to the teeth. All of them were equipped with dark gold equipment. What was even more impressive was that the Frost Empire also gave him a blueprint. Airship, MMP. When William saw the construction requirements of the airship, he cursed in his heart. The Frost Empire had given him a lot of gifts, especially the blueprint of the airship. It was something that many kingdoms dreamed of. But the cost of building this thing was enough to destroy the current City of Dawn. The Frost Empire seemed to be doing this for the City of Dawn, but in fact, they wanted to make William spend a lot of effort to build the airship. This would slow down the development of the City of Dawn. In short, they had given him all the good stuff. Don't blame the Frost Empire for not being generous. As for whether William could afford to build it, it was up to him, but William knew what he was doing. He kept thanking Kieran on the surface, but he secretly hid the blueprint of the airship in the deepest part of the space ring. This was to prevent himself from being tempted to build this huge thing. Let's put it this way. If the City of Dawn did not have 1 billion gold coins worth of assets or enough magical stones, it would not even be able to touch the airship. This super strategic weapon that could fly extremely fast and had a super defense shield. It could also shoot magic cannons in all directions. It was a complete mess. But there was one thing. If William wanted to use this thing, he would need many supporting magical airships and strong professionals to prevent enemies from rushing over. Otherwise, even if this thing could really be built, it would just be a moving target in front of legendary and epic powerhouses. It's getting late. Rest early, Your Highness. I'll head back first. After chatting with William for a while, Kieran Shurgwang felt that the more he talked to William, the more he liked him. This made him feel a little strange. So, Kieran decided to slip away first to prevent himself from losing his reputation. However, William grabbed his arm and said with a smile, "Don't let me introduce you to a disciple." Kieran looked into William's eyes. He had thought that this old man was going to experience some kind of stimulation beyond the imagination of ordinary people. However, the latter half of William's words made him heave a sigh of relief. Subsequently, Old Leather pushed the door open and entered. When he saw Kieran, he quickly walked up to him and knelt on the ground. He hugged Kieran's leg and cried, "Teacher, are you the teacher I've never met? Thank you for your introduction, Your Highness. Thank you for your recognition, teacher. From today onwards, I am your disciple, and you are my teacher." Just as William was grinning foolishly, Kieran Shurgwang raised his eyebrows and snapped his fingers. Time rewound. William felt as though time had slowed down. Old Leather's words and kneeling posture were replayed in reverse. Then, he retreated behind the door. It was as though Old Leather's timeline had been rewound. When William saw this scene, he was dumbfounded. Old Leather was very powerful. Wasn't Old Leather's ability too insane? As expected of a fellow who could bring people back from the dead after becoming a saint. His ferocity was simply a mess. Kieran narrowed his eyes and was about to say something. Old Leather appeared again. He vomited blood as he pushed open the door. Just like before, he knelt in front of Kieran and hugged Kieran's leg. As he repeated the same words, William raised his eyebrows. Kieran Shurgwang raised his eyebrows curiously. He glanced at William and then at Old Leather, who was covered in cracks and blood. He sighed and said, "Your time endowment is good, but you're a warrior, while I'm a mage." Old Leather's ears were bleeding, but he gritted his teeth and said, "Teacher, no matter what you teach me, I'll learn it seriously. It doesn't matter if it's magic or other things." Kieran gazed deeply at Old Leather. Since Old Leather could walk out from William's time rewinding spell, it proved that his time endowment was good. Back in the Frost Empire, Kieran had seen many students with time endowment in the Magic Academy, but he had no intention of teaching them. This was because the highest limit of growth for those people was undoubtedly great magicians or magisters. Perhaps in the eyes of many people, being a time enchanter was already very powerful, but Kieran was confident that he could become a sage. What was the point of teaching a disciple who could not even become a legendary mage? That would be a disgrace to him. Kieran hesitated for a long time, then said in a low voice, "The Elven Queen asked me to teach you some knowledge about time. You can attend the class with me. If you perform the best out of everyone, I might accept you as my disciple for Prince William's sake." "Thank you." Old Leather could not help but smile. After watching Kieran Shurgwang leave, blood seeped out of Old Leather's pores. William patted Old Leather, who was sprawled on the ground, and asked, "Will you die?" "I've suffered from the backlash of time." "Oh, that means you won't die. Don't waste the life potion." "Thank you, Prince William." Old Leather lay motionlessly on the ground covered in blood. NPCs were different from players. William, who was a player, could easily enjoy the thrill of leveling up. After learning skills, he could continuously level up. But most NPCs, even the gifted ones, needed to be taught by a teacher. The rarer an attribute talent was, the better a teacher was needed to teach it. Space and time were the same. On the other hand, Burned Cinder, Diablo, and the rest all had fire or metal innate attribute. However, there were too many people with such innate attribute. They could obtain information from various channels about how to break through to the next realm or how to grow. Therefore, they didn't need to find a mentor at all. Old Leather, on the other hand, was different. Ever since William had brought Old Leather to the City of Dawn, he had disrupted Old Leather's growth. As a result, Old Leather's training speed was not as fast as Burned Cinder and the others. Hence, William felt the need to find a teacher for Old Leather. There were many legends of the time element, but since he had encountered Old Man Time, there was no reason for him to let him off. Just like Bernice Frost, the Elven Queen, who was in the Saint Realm, could also sense that Kieran Time was extraordinary. She even allowed him to stay in the city and teach the time element professionals of the three races. Time passed slowly, until the last day of the war. In front of all the players, William officially announced that the Dawn mercenary team would be the vanguard army. They would attack the Orc Empire's 10 iron fortresses the next morning. After the players received the quest, there was a lot of discussion. However, he did not seem to be afraid of death, because they had gotten used to it after a while. As long as Prince William had a war-related quest, they would be killed. Therefore, when they looked at the rewards, they knew what they had to do. Now, all of them were rubbing their palms in preparation for the super war the next day. But the other pure-blooded elves didn't dare to believe it. Because what was the objective of William's quest? You might not believe it. It was not to occupy any iron fortress. It was not to kill a lot of enemies. It was not to stand on the iron fortress walls for long. It was to use the number of arrows, cannons, magic cannons, and heavy crossbows, tsk. It was such a perverted and bloody mission, but the chosen ones didn't resist at all. This proved that the Lord of the City of Dawn had good governance. But in fact, the players didn't care about their own death. As long as they could make up for their losses with experience and equipment, they would not suffer any losses. Many siege strategies had appeared on the forum. One of them caught the attention of the players. It was Chu Liuchio's siege strategy. Hello, everyone. The mission given by Prince William seems to be a suicide mission. But in reality, it is to take over the city. Of course, I won't tell you how to take over the city. But I can share some experience of suicide missions. Everyone can revive 6 times. In the first 2 waves of suicide missions, you don't need to wear any equipment. You just need to wear a coat and hold a long sword. When the orcs see that we can't withstand a single blow, they might rush out and fight with the vanguard of the players to gain momentum. At the same time, we can use up a lot of cannons and arrows in the city. After the first 2 waves of suicide missions, the defending orcs might notice something. But the orcs were a group of boorish men who were having fun killing. They wouldn't change their strategy. But if we die twice, we will only lose some experience and equipment. We have already gained from the mission rewards. When it comes to the 3rd and 4th waves of orcs, if you have a second set of equipment, you will change into the equipment that you have previously used and continue to fight the orc. We have to maintain the rhythm of suicide missions. The price of suicide missions is to let the orc army feel our strength. But don't scare them. Remember, if you die earlier, you must choose to revive at the commander's flag. Don't revive on the spot. Everyone has to gather and charge together. Because the 5th and 6th waves are the most important 2 waves. At that time, we will have to put on all our equipment and fight them head-on. Just as many players were wondering why they had to fight a tough battle, the post was filled with questions. Chu Liuchio suddenly posted a hidden mission. It was that after the players of the City of Dawn used up a certain number of arrows and cannons, they would organize a regular army to charge. As such, the players understood that Prince William had the intention to take down a few fortresses. But this kind of obscure news was intended to be released at the last minute. Why did William specially give this hidden mission to Chu Liuchio? He wanted to make the players feel the importance of this mission through Chu Liuchio. After all, William was an NPC. He couldn't formulate a strategy that would send the players to their death. But Chu Liuchio was a master strategist. Not only was it for the victory of the City of Dawn, but it was also for the hidden mission and the main storyline mission. He would try his best to make the players and the regular army cooperate and have a tacit understanding. Time passed. Soon, it was the next morning. The 18 orc military fortresses were connected in a straight line. The distance between each fortress was no more than 10 kilometers. No one planned to bypass these fortresses to attack the Black Great Wall. But when the first ray of sunlight appeared in the morning, countless orcs who were waiting for the battle saw an endless black line appearing on the snowy plains. It was an endless number of soldiers. It was the army of the City of Dawn. It looked like it was a messy army of players. They saw. A player suddenly roared as he charged forward. Subsequently, a total of 10 Black Seas rushed towards 10 of the military fortresses in a disorderly manner. The orc commanders who were guarding the fortresses were dumbfounded when they saw this scene. The berserkers and legion commanders of the Frost Empire were also dumbfounded. It turned out that the chosen ones were even more reckless than the berserkers. Chapter 386. There were 18 military fortresses of the Orc Empire. They were large fortresses that could house 80,000 to 100,000 soldiers. The four walls were 50 meters tall, and the walls were inlaid with densely packed sharp barbs. The barbs looked like they could be placed on top of the siege ladders, but whether it was climbing the ladders or accidentally falling down, they would not be able to withstand it. The only possibility was to be pierced through by the barbs. There was no possibility of survival. Of course, the height of the city walls was not a problem. It was only used to defend against professionals below the middle and beginner level. As for the advanced and grandmaster professionals, they could only use the large number of heavy-duty crossbows and magic cannons to fight head-on. Other than that, there was no other way. The City of Dawn had 18 suicide legions consisting of 100,000 chosen ones. In the first wave, William only let 10 suicide legions charge towards the orc military fortresses. Or rather, His Royal Highness did not give any orders during the first wave of attack. The players were like idiots who were not afraid of death. They directly charged towards the orc military fortresses. The vanguard army had no order, no formation, and no instructions. Many onlookers were taken aback. Whether it was the spectating envoys of the Frost Empire or the elfin princes and legion commanders, they could not help but wonder what William was going to do. It was possible that the City of Dawn was nothing. After all, rumors were just rumors. No matter how many victories the City of Dawn achieved, or if they were the only victors of the Darkness invasion, they would not be able to make an accurate conclusion until they met. But the regular legions of the City of Dawn were here. The 100,000 Dawn legions were hiding in the Frost Forest, secretly preparing for battle. 2 high-spirited Griffin legions. 6 blade-like cavalry legions. 3 of them were White Thunder Warhorse legions, while the other 3 were Black Dragon's Blood Warhorse legions. There was also a Dragon's Blood Legion that was filled with endless fighting spirit. This Dragon's Blood Legion consisted of 3,500 soldiers. They wore dragon scale armor. Every part of their bodies was covered with the same elemental dragon scales: ice, wood, water, fire, earth, and darkness. There were 6 different elemental dragons' blood warriors. Many sharp-eyed onlookers discovered that there were hundreds of dragon speakers among the dragon's blood warriors. But they were not dragon followers. Many people were dumbfounded by this situation. They knew that dragon speakers could only be created by the dragon race using dragon language magic. What was going on in the City of Dawn? In particular, many people were wondering how many dragons William had killed to form such a trump-card Dragonblood Legion. After all, not everyone had Moses' ability to use the dragon crystal to strengthen a Dragonblood warrior with every drop of dragon blood. The soldiers of the Dawn army stood in the cold wind and snow. Each of them had the aura of a veteran. It was because of these 100,000 soldiers that no one dared to underestimate William. Could it be that this group of heaven's chosen ones are all so unrestrained? There is no discipline at all. Look at the regular army and then look at the Dawn mercenary team. The difference is too big. The City of Dawn has more than 2 million chosen ones. I feel like it's a loss. That's right. It's definitely a huge loss. The Empire originally planned to recruit some chosen ones, but if the chosen ones are like this, I feel that it's useless even if they can come back to life. Will they just be a waste of resources? Many people were talking about whether the chosen one was worth using. When the player army was less than 5,000 meters away from the military fortress, they cooperated and showed how useless they were. Because the orc army's cannons, enchanted heavy crossbows, and catapults had started their first wave of attack. Everyone could only hear the loud rumbling sounds. The explosive cannons traveled at the speed of sound and exploded in the center of the battlefield. The deafening sounds of the cannons were continuous. The player army was in a complete mess from the bombardment. Almost every cannonball could blast at least 8 to 9 players into the sky instantly. There were signs of flowers blooming on the icy sea and snowy plains. Waves of players were blasted into white light and fragments. Catapults streaked across the sky like a meteor shower. The players dodged if they could. However, because there were too many of them, they were too lazy to dodge. They allowed the catapults to smash them to death in the snowy plains. The heavy crossbows were accompanied by sonic booms as they shot toward the players. Basically, every arrow could pierce through the players like candied fruits on a stick. However, it was the first charge in 30 minutes. Almost 1/3 of the 10 million players had perished in the battle. A total of 300,000 players had returned to the center of the commander's flag to revive. The battle was a tragic sight. The messengers of the Frost Empire and some elves could not help but swallow their saliva when they saw this scene. I remember that the more times the chosen ones die, the lower their combat power will be. According to this method of death, they will not be able to fight after a while, right? Yes. I heard that after dying 6 times, this group of chosen ones will disappear into thin air. They will only reappear the next day. An army of 1 million chosen ones did not even manage to climb up the city wall. 1/3 of them have perished. Let's go. There's nothing to see. Some people chose to leave the battlefield. They no longer had any expectations for the City of Dawn's vanguard army. But many people did not leave. They wanted to know if the regular army of the City of Dawn would fight today. But the possibility was small. As long as the Lord of the City of Dawn was not a lunatic, he would not use his trump card to fight such a battle. Back to the Death Legion. The more players died, the more excited the defending orcs became. This was because the chosen ones were living target. The orcs were getting more and more excited as they killed. It was like a fat otaku fighting zombies in the 21st century. Simply put, the orcs could not stop. Don't bother about me. I can kill 6 to 7 enemies with 1 arrow. It's fine if you don't give me battle achievements. Why are you stopping me from shooting? What? Takes a lot of effort to make the cannons. Are you kidding me? When I shoot, there will be a huge explosion. More than 10 enemies will be blasted into the sky. I have not encountered such a dense formation for many years. Why don't you let me shoot a few shots to have some fun? Are you beastly? Many of the supervisors were speechless. Some of them even started to fire the cannons. It was so fun anyway. The orcs who had gone berserk had their blood boiling. They could not stop the orcs, and the commander could not be bothered. After all, these were the orcs. The orcs mustered all their strength and continuously shot heavy-duty arrows, stones, and cannons. Just like that. The battle lasted for 2 hours. The army of 1 million players was completely annihilated. Countless arrows, cannon shrapnel, and huge rocks littered the icy plains before everyone's eyes. The players were crestfallen, and they resurrected in the middle of the commander flag without any will to fight. The players had to think about how long it would take for them to wear their equipment. Witnessing this scene, an epic Blackleaf elf warrior came to William. He was one of the deputy commanders of this battle, Halder. He patted William's shoulder and said in a deep voice, "Prince William, do you want to stop the attack? No need. The chosen ones are here to die." William shook his head with a stern gaze. Like a tyrant, he waved the commander flag again. The players started the second wave of attack without any rest. Halder could only shake his head and leave. He was a Blackleaf elf. As the prince of the Blackleaf elves, William had the responsibility and obligation to lead the battle in the City of Dawn. But William was the lord of the City of Dawn. He had accepted the mission of being the vanguard. Nobody could stop him from sending his subordinates to die. Especially the most crucial thing was the death of 1 million players. The orcs not only felt the thrill of killing, but they also realized that their bodies had become stronger. At the military fortress, Many orcs clenched their fists and shouted that killing the chosen ones would make them stronger. The orc commanders also realized this problem. They realized that their soldiers had become stronger after killing the chosen ones. Even they themselves felt slightly stronger after killing the heaven's chosen one. Could it be that killing the chosen ones will allow us to devour their souls to strengthen ourselves? When they saw the second wave of the player army, many orc commanders reported the situation. Hence, they made a great decision. They would leave the fortress to fight, because the orcs who were responsible for the cannons, heavy crossbows, and catapults were not very powerful. If they could become stronger by killing the chosen ones, hence, after killing the chosen ones, they would send their close combat legions to deal with the unmotivated orcs. Hence, after the second wave of the player army attack, the orcs at the steel fortress launched an even fiercer barrage of cannons, catapults, and heavy crossbows. Large numbers of players collapsed on the road. Many orcs did not even notice that some players had no weapons in their hands. More than 300,000 members of the player army died. The players lazily carried the siege ladders and were about to climb the city walls. The gates of these steel fortresses opened. 40 to 50,000 orcs clad in black iron armor roared as they charged out. The trap that the orc commanders were worried about did not appear. After all, the orc army was like a flood of steel, crushing the densely packed player army like they were nothing more than dry weed. Many players could not kill an orc even if they risked their lives. Only when the orcs charged too recklessly and were surrounded by more than 10 players would there be casualties. Countless people saw this scene. They did not know what to say. Were these the chosen ones? Weaklings. The weapons in their hands were shining brightly. Could it be that they couldn't cause damage to those intermediate orcs? Death. They died again and again. The player army was like that. Time and time again, they charged forward without fear of death. The second wave of players was annihilated. The beastmen once again felt that they had become stronger, and the commanders also managed to snatch quite a few kills. They also discovered that their strength was real and permanent. Hence, the orcs couldn't stop their bloodlust. The player army was killed for the third time, the fourth time. He was escorted all the way until nightfall. Until now, the orcs were no longer worried that the Dawn mercenary team would attack the fortress. Instead, they were worried that the Dawn mercenary team would not attack the fortress. They were in a state of excitement. They shouted for the chosen ones to fight again. Nowadays, the beastmen didn't even eat or drink. They only held their weapons tightly in an attempt to steal ahead and become stronger. They even wished that the chosen ones would continue to kill them. It would be best if they could kill them until they reached the next realm. When William saw this scene, he knew that the players had succeeded in giving experience points. His Royal Highness narrowed his eyes and muttered, "If there are no accidents, I will take down all 10 military fortresses for you today." However, the epic experts guarding these 10 fortresses have to be dealt with by someone else. William sent a telepathic message to the elves to borrow some epic experts. They were responsible for holding the fort at critical moments. Ever since the elves knew that William had killed nearly 4 million players, they did not have any expectations. Many elves who disliked William started to criticize him, but it was necessary to have epic experts to hold the fort. William could not reject them. This meant that the City of Dawn was going to launch an all-out attack. Hence, the envoys were tired of the scene of people being killed and had all left. There were only 10 epic experts holding the fort. William launched an all-out attack. Except for the 1 million players who had just arrived, the remaining 800,000 players who had not died even once were sent out by William. But in the cold Arctic, it was normal to have a snowy night. Mages from all sides were casting magic to block the enemy's vision. No one realized that the 1 million players were changing their equipment. At this moment, the 10 epic rankers seemed to have noticed the situation. These fellows had killed 4 waves of players, but they were not wearing any equipment. It was no wonder that they were so weak. There was something going on behind the scenes. Were the 800,000 new soldiers going to fight? Why were the dragon's blood warriors at the back of the Chosen One's army? Wait a minute. They could no longer differentiate between the Chosen Ones and the regular soldiers. They were all wearing the same clothes. Gosh. Cannons? There were more than 600 cannons? You guys have a lot of private jobs. Why didn't you use them in the past? It turned out that the Chosen Ones of the Dawn mercenary team knew military formations. They also knew that the formation should be more scattered. That was right. The distance between the players was more than a few meters. They would not be hit by the cannons, heavy arrows, and catapults. As the army of players took on a different formation and displayed a different aura, the 10 epic-ranked big shots started to feel that this battle was getting interesting. The orcs saw that the players' formation had become more scattered. The commanders started to complain. These fools were getting smarter. They should stop using cannons, heavy crossbows, and catapults. The 4 waves of defense had depleted their reserve. They were waiting for the envoys to deliver the supplies. There were many regular soldiers mixed in the player army. The orcs couldn't tell how many soldiers the City of Dawn had sent. Their scattered formations and large numbers of soldiers made it impossible for the orcs to tell how many soldiers the City of Dawn had sent. More importantly, there was one more point. The orcs were in a killing frenzy. They had never come into contact with the players. After killing 4 waves of players, they thought that the players were a bunch of pushovers. In their hearts, an ordinary orc warrior could easily defeat hundreds of players. What if they ran out of supplies for the cannons, heavy arrows, and catapults? Of course, they would face them head-on. Gosh, it was time to kill the orcs. When the player army charged forward, they only encountered sparse arrows. When they were less than 2,000 meters away from the military fortresses, 80,000 orcs rushed out from the fortresses. They wanted to destroy this group of Chosen Ones in one fell swoop. However, the situation was different, because when both sides clashed with each other, it was not the players who were on the losing side. It was the orcs who were originally arrogant. Retreat, retreat, retreat! The orc commanders shouted crazily. It was a pity. It was too late. Everything was too late. The bloodthirsty orcs did not believe that the Chosen Ones had become so powerful. They thought that it was an illusion. An illusion!